Chapter 144. At the core of the battlefield was the encampment of the second-grade sect, Pill Heart Sect. On a mountain peak at the back of the mountain, there was a protruding rock that resembled an eagle spreading its wings. It was called Eagle Flying Rock. A figure sat on the Eagle Flying Rock. He wore a white close-fitting robe embroidered with red clouds. It outlined his tall and sturdy figure. He had a head of snow-white hair and looked to be in his 30s. However, his eyes were filled with vicissitudes. He sat on the flying eagle rock with one leg bent and the other hanging in the air. There was a wine gourd beside him. Looking at the setting sun, he narrowed his eyes slightly and reached out to grab the wine gourd beside him. He raised his head and drank, but there was no more wine in the gourd. He only drank in loneliness. The white-haired young man shook the gourd and sighed. At this moment, his eyes lit up as he looked at a streak of light flying over from below. He chuckled. "The wine is here." He waved at the streak of light. After a short while, the streak of light landed beside him, revealing a delicate and cute girl. The girl had an exquisite figure and wore a green dress. Her beautiful hair was tied into 2 ponytails. As soon as she appeared, she smiled at the young man. The dimples at the corner of her mouth were very beautiful. "Senior brother," the girl called out crisply. "What's senior brother?" The young man glared. "Call me Marshall uncle." The girl tilted her head and looked at him. A sly light flashed in her beautiful eyes. "Are you sure?" The young man said seriously. "Seniority is not to be confused. Your father is my senior brother, so of course you have to call me Marshall uncle." The girl put her hands behind her back and stepped on the air, pretending to leave. She looked at the young man from the corner of her eyes. "Then think carefully. Only senior brother will have wine to drink. As for Marshall uncle, you can go wherever you want." "Junior sister Chan you're so naughty," the young man reprimanded seriously. Only then did the young girl called Chan let out a pft and retracted her foot. She then took out several jars of wine from her storage pouch. The young man hurriedly opened one of the jars and sniffed the aroma. He grabbed the wine jar and drank a few mouthfuls. He burped in satisfaction and asked casually, "Where did you get this wine? It's a little old." The young girl poured the wine she brought into the young man's wine gourd and casually said, "My mother buried this wine in the jade bamboo forest." The young man was stunned and looked at Chan in a daze. "This isn't your dowry? You're too daring. If your mother finds out..." Chan giggled. "If you don't say it and I don't say it, how would my mother know?" The young man looked at Chan with a conflicted expression, then at his wine gourd. He tilted his head back and took a few more gulps. Who cares? He was used to being beaten since he was young. As long as he didn't leave the Spirit Stream battlefield, that old witch wouldn't be able to do anything to him. "Senior apprentice brother, when are you going to marry me?" Chan sat in front of the young man and asked with a serious expression. Cough, cough, cough. The young man coughed violently. He wiped his mouth and reprimanded the young girl. "What nonsense are you talking about? I'm your Marshall uncle." The young girl tilted her head and touched her red lips with her finger. 32 years ago, that night you kissed?" She didn't look old, but in fact, she was good at maintaining her appearance. It was impossible to tell her true age from her appearance. "Shut up." The young man looked flustered and looked around with a guilty conscience. "If your mother hears this, do you think I'll be able to live? Moreover, I was still young at that time. She was only a few years old at that time. How could she remember it so clearly?" He couldn't bear to look back on the past. "Then I won't say it." Chan looked at the young man with a smile. She even stretched out her hand and pulled at her lips, as if she was trying to sew them shut. The young man immediately felt a headache coming on. After being together for so many years, he was very clear about the young girl's personality. The more she acted like this, the more likely it was that she had something important to say. He sighed. "If you have something to say, just say it." Chan smiled. "Then I'll say it. You have to marry me." "Shut up." The young man turned around decisively, leaving his back to the young girl. "You don't want to hear about the Jade Blood Sect?" Chan voice sounded from behind him. The young man turned around and his expression became serious. His mouth twitched a few times before he finally said in a hoarse voice, Is it going to be dethroned? It's about time. Chan shook her head, her large eyes turning into crescents. The Jade Blood sect might not be dethroned. What do you mean? The young man frowned. After not accepting disciples for 30 years, the Jade Blood sect was on the verge of being dethroned. In 2 months, the sect's grade assessment would begin. This kind of assessment was not something that could be interfered with. His old man and his senior sister had held on for 30 years, but the Jade Blood sect had slowly fallen from 1st grade to 9th grade. This time, it would be impossible for it to retain its name. I heard that half a year ago, Old Man Tang accepted a disciple, but on the way back, he was attacked. Old Man Tang had no choice but to send him to the Spirit Stream battlefield. Now, this little guy named Luya has reached the 5th order and is on his way to the Jade Blood sect station. Before Chan finished speaking, the young man stood up, his face filled with shock and disbelief. The old man accepted a disciple? It seems so. Where did this news come from? Can you confirm it? I don't know where it came from, but the news has spread and many people know about it. Spread? The young man frowned and muttered, "Not good." Saying so, a layer of sword light wrapped around his body and he flew off. "Remember to marry me," Chan shouted behind him, but there was no response. She just snorted lightly, "You're in such a hurry that you didn't even ask for my location." Saying so, she sent a message to the young man, explaining the information she had in detail. The next moment, a shout came from the front. "You're not allowed to leave the sect without permission." "Li Ba Xian, what are you trying to do?" As the voice shouted, it fell down, but no one knew what it had encountered. On the Flying Eagle Stone, the girl named Chan also stood up and muttered to herself, "Sacred Flame Sect, Golden Cloud Pavilion, 100 Refinements Valley, which one should I go to? Forget it, I'm too lazy to think about it." Looking around to make sure there was no one around, she took off one of her embroidered shoes and threw it into the air. When she landed, she looked at the tip of the shoe and muttered, "This direction, 100 Refinements Valley? Then let's go to 100 Refinements Valley." Saying so, she raised her hand and threw out a handkerchief. The handkerchief immediately expanded in the wind and turned into a spirit artifact several meters in diameter. Chan flew onto the handkerchief and flew off. The voice from before quickly sounded again. "Senior Sister Yuan, where are you going?" "Dodge, dodge." Chan waved her hand without holding back. "Ayaya." That voice continued to cry out as it continued to descend. After a while, a figure crawled up from the ground with a dusty face. He looked in the direction the handkerchief had left in, as though he had lost his parents. The guardian and deputy guardian had run away together. Ever since the establishment of the Pill Heart sect, such a ridiculous thing had never happened before. They were in deep trouble. He hurriedly sent out a message, telling his fellow sect members to guard the various important locations. He even activated the defensive array to prevent enemies from taking the opportunity to invade. At the same time, he sent someone to inform the 9 provinces of what had happened. 2 days later, at the 100 Refinements Valley's encampment in the inner circle of the battlefield, the sect's defensive array was activated. The guardian who presided over the place looked at the woman in the sky with resentment. "Feng Yuechun, what are you doing?" However, he could only hide in the defensive array and shout. He did not dare to run out and provoke her. There was no other reason. The woman flying in the sky was the top of the Spirit Stream list. Moreover, she was a wily old fox who had occupied the top spot for more than a decade. It was not that Feng Yuechun had a heaven-defying cultivation talent. She was not bad in terms of talent, but it was not enough for her to occupy the top spot for more than a decade. The main reason was that this woman had been delaying her cultivation. More than a decade ago, she had opened 360 spirit apertures, and everyone thought that she would advance to the Cloud River realm. However, more than a decade had passed, and she had not advanced. More than a decade of consolidation in the Spirit Stream realm had allowed her to possess spirit energy purer than ordinary people. That was not all, but the key point was that this woman was a Dharma cultivator. Without advancing her cultivation, she studied Dharma techniques. As a result, this woman's strength grew stronger with each passing year. Ever since she occupied the top spot more than a decade ago, She had not moved down. It was rumored that she was proficient in more than 100 Dharma techniques. An ordinary ninth order spirit stream realm Dharma cultivator would at most grasp a dozen or two Dharma techniques. They might only be proficient in a few Dharma techniques. In comparison, this woman was terrifying. Being stuck like this was not a good thing, especially for a cultivator like Feng Yuechan who was extremely talented. As she grew older, her potential would gradually decrease, and if she didn't advance, it would definitely affect her future achievements. One had to know that people of her generation were basically all in the Cloud River realm, and there were even a few who were already in the True Lake realm. Therefore, even though she had always occupied the top spot of the Spirit Stream list, there was no cultivator from any sect who wanted to push her down. The price they had to pay was too high. The Spirit Stream list was an extremely fair list. It was self-generated by the Spirit Stream battlefield and was not arranged by humans. Therefore, even if a female cultivator from a second-order sect had always occupied the top spot, none of the cultivators from first-order sects would question her strength. Over the past decade, whenever the genius cultivators of the various sects advanced to the ninth-order Spirit Stream realm, most of them would choose to do their best to break through and leave the Spirit Stream battlefield. After all, it was not good to be powerless to resist being ridden on by a woman. Just now, the cultivators of the 100 Refinements Valley had a deep understanding of the strength of the person at the top of the list. After a few Dharma techniques, the defensive array of the encampment actually hummed. One had to know that although the 100 Refinements Valley was only a fourth-order sect, it had been a first-order sect 40 years ago. Because too many of them had been killed by a certain sect, they had fallen from first-order sect to fourth-order sect. A centipede dies but does not fall down. The 100 Refinements Valley still had a very strong foundation. However, at this very moment, the encampment of a sect was actually blocked by a single person. All of the cultivators of the 100 Refinements Valley were hiding in the defensive array and trembling. It was obvious how powerful the person at the top of the Spirit Stream list was. Facing the doubts of the people below, the young girl Feng Yuechan responded with a fireball the size of a house. Compared to Feng Yuechan's fireball technique, the difference between Dong Shai's fireball technique and Feng Yuechan's was like the difference between a grandson and a grandfather. Chapter 145. It was as if the sun had fallen. When the fireball smashed into the protective array, the entire base shook and spiritual energy exploded. Although the protective array blocked the power of the spell, the power of the fireball still seeped in, causing the temperature in the base to rise. Tell your people to come back, or this young lady will start a massacre. Feng Yuechan stood on her flying spirit artifact and shouted. The guardian envoy in charge of the station didn't dare to be negligent and quickly sent a message to his senior brother and senior sister. He could tell that Feng Yuechan wasn't joking. For a moment, some of the 100 Refinements Valley cultivators who were rushing towards the outer circle of the battlefield cursed and retreated. In recent days, the Spirit Stream battlefield had been very lively, much livelier than before, especially the sects in the inner ring. Several sects in the Grand Heaven Alliance camp had declared war on the nearby Myriad Demon Ridge forces. What was even more outrageous was that a Grand Heaven Alliance sect called the Ding Palace had crossed the territories of several sects and declared war on Clear Sky sect, which was thousands of kilometers away from them. When the war was declared, the low-level cultivators of Clear Sky sect were stunned. They were thousands of kilometers away from each other, and their territories weren't close to each other. Although they were in different camps, there was no hatred between them. They didn't know how they had provoked the Ding Palace. Only a few cultivators with higher cultivation understood what was going on because they had received some orders from their sects in the 9 states. They were ordered to immediately rush to the outer ring of the battlefield to find traces of a person. They naturally didn't want to pay attention to such a declaration of war, but they couldn't ignore it either. The cultivators of the Ding Palace had come all the way to their doorstep and blocked the low-level cultivators from leaving. In desperation, the Spirit Stream 8th and 9th Order cultivators of Clear Sky sect could only return to the station to calm the people. In the first 2 days, there were only a few such declarations of war, but as time passed, there were more and more. According to the statistics of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance, In just 5 days, the declaration of war between the two camps had swept over hundreds of sects, big and small. This was something that was impossible to happen in the past. This was the first large-scale battle between the Grand Heaven Alliance and the Myriad Demons Ridge in the Spirit Stream battlefield after a few decades. This matter involved too many sects, and even the sects in the core circle were paying attention to it. This battle would determine whether the flag of the Grand Heaven Alliance that once commanded the 9 states could be preserved. Originally, this flag was supposed to fall in 2 months. However, during this sensitive period, a minor character had suddenly appeared to maintain this flag. How could the Myriad Demon Ridge tolerate this? After more than 30 years of waiting, the melon was about to fall when it was ripe. No one wanted to complicate matters, so no matter what, that little 5th Order cultivator had to die, and that flag had to fall. This concerned the reputation of the 10,000 Demons Ridge. At this time, in a desolate mountain range, Lu Yi shook off the blood on his long saber. Several cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge were lying on the ground around him, his brows furrowed. He faintly felt that something was not right. A few days ago, after killing Dong Shuyi, Yang Kai once again set off in the direction of the Blue Blood Sect's station, both physically and mentally relaxed. However, since the battle 3 days ago, something strange seemed to have happened. 3 days ago, he was leisurely hurrying on his journey when a group of cultivators suddenly came towards him. It was normal to encounter cultivators in the wilderness, and Lu Yi had encountered too many cultivators along the way. However, under normal circumstances, both sides would take the initiative to avoid any misunderstandings. When he encountered this group of cultivators, Lu Yi wanted to avoid them, but the other party rushed straight at him with a look of pleasant surprise, as if they had picked up money. Since the other party was so impolite, Lu Yi naturally had nothing to say. He rode on Hoopa and charged forward. Although this group of cultivators had a 5th Order cultivator, how could they be Lu Yi's opponent? In a short while, they were all killed. After collecting the spoils of war, Yang Kai set off again. However, something unexpected happened. Soon, Lu Yi encountered another group of Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators. In just 3 days, he had killed 6 groups of people, collected more than 20 storage bags, and gained more than 100 merit points. Lu Yi was a little unhappy, because this would delay his trip. What made him even more annoyed was that there was something wrong with his spirit energy. His spirit energy seemed to have some impurities. The reason why he could cultivate without any hidden dangers was because of his talent tree. He had carefully observed his talent tree. Every time he took a spirit pill to cultivate, the pill toxins in the spirit pill would be burned by the talent tree and then expelled from his body. Therefore, his spirit energy had always been extremely pure, and there had never been a case of pill toxins accumulation like the sect master had mentioned before. Even without the sharpness and defense spirit rune, his strength could surpass any cultivator of the same level just by relying on the purity of his spirit energy. Because the purer the spirit energy, the greater the destructive power of a cultivator's spirit energy. The same saber slash, but different cultivators with different spirit energy purity would erupt with different power. But now, some impurities had appeared in his spirit energy. Last night, when he was resting, he carefully checked the situation of his talent tree and was shocked to find that it seemed to have lost its ability to burn pill toxins. This was the root cause of the impurities in his spirit energy. He could grow from a cultivator who had just opened his apertures to the 5th Order in less than half a year because of the talent tree. If the talent tree lost its ability to burn pill toxins, his future cultivation speed would be greatly reduced. This discovery made Lu Yi's mood quite heavy. Today, he encountered Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators blocking his way again, so he didn't hold back and killed them all. However, he also thought about it a lot. This situation might not be impossible to change. The talent tree needed to absorb some fire attribute or scorching energy. This energy could not only burn the leaves of the talent tree, but also act as fuel for the talent tree to burn pill toxins. If the fuel it absorbed was used up, it would naturally not be able to burn pill toxins. Lu Yi didn't know if his guess was correct. If he wanted to verify it, he would have to find another source of energy for the talent tree to absorb. The first time the talent tree absorbed the orange flames sealed in a piece of or and the second time it absorbed the scorching heat under the barrier-breaking fruit tree. The amount of energy it absorbed was roughly the same, but Lu Yi didn't know where to find it. The first 2 times were just coincidences. Fortunately, his previous spirit energy was pure enough. If there were only a few impurities, it wouldn't affect him much. Now, he just couldn't take spirit pills as recklessly as before. At most, he would take 1 a day and use spirit-gathering spirit runes to improve his strength. He still had a lot of spirit stones on hand. He originally planned to go to the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union and ask if he could buy something to fuel the talent tree. But now, he couldn't go. In the past few days, he had encountered several waves of Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators, and each wave was led by a 5th-order cultivator. He felt like he was being targeted. He was cleaning up the battlefield. Lu Yi looked up and saw an eagle circling in the sky, seemingly looking for prey. At the same time, 3 kilometers away from Lu Yi, under a big tree, several cultivators were gathered. Several corpses were lying around them, and in front of them was a miniature spirit artifact that looked like a shadow moon disk. Lu Ye's figure was reflected on it. It was a bird's eye view from high up in the sky. Several people were quietly watching the scene on the miniature shadow moon disk. A man gulped. Is that a 5th-order cultivator? They had seen with their own eyes how Lu Yi cut down the group of Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators like he was cutting melons and vegetables. His movements were clean and nimble. At a glance, it was obvious that he had killed many people. Moreover, the speed at which he killed his enemies was something that ordinary 6th-order cultivators couldn't compare to. Are we sure? Another person asked. Don't be mistaken. A 5th-order cultivator riding a snow-white tiger from Feng Yun Mountain to the Blue Blood sect. 16 or 17 years old, who else could it be but him? The leader of the group, a voluptuous woman, spoke. The miniature shadow moon disk was maintained by her spirit energy. Looking at her cultivation, it was clear that she was a 7th-order cultivator. Accompanying her were 3 6th-order cultivators and several 5th-order cultivators. It was impossible to see such a small team in the outer ring of the battlefield under normal circumstances. They had originally set off from their own station to the junction between the outer ring and the inner ring. Because of their strength, it was a suitable place for them to gain experience, but halfway through, they received orders from their masters and hurried over. They didn't know much about the grievances of the previous generation, but they knew that their sect owed a debt of gratitude to the Blue Blood sect. So, when the news began to spread uncontrollably, their sect elders ordered them to come and rescue this young man riding a white tiger and protect his safety. They weren't the only sect to take action. The entire spirit stream battlefield was now surging with undercurrents and surging waves. Many sects wanted to protect this young man, but even more wanted to kill him. This was a game between 2 camps, and the young man's life or death would determine the final outcome. Chapter 146. We found him, what should we do next? Should we approach him directly? A 6th-order cultivator in the team asked. That's not appropriate, another person shook his head. It's better to protect him in secret. Many sects in Myriad Demon Ridge have already taken action. We're close and came early, which is an advantage, but if we expose ourselves in the open, we'll be easily targeted. Moreover, this person should be unclear about his current situation. If we approach him rashly, it'll be counterproductive. It won't be good if he harbors ill feelings towards us. But protecting him in secret might not be enough to protect him. If it were up to me, just knock him out and take him away. A burly man suggested. Everyone turned to look at him. The burly man was at a loss. Am I wrong? Yes, a 6th-order cultivator nodded. Go knock him out. The burly man shrunk his neck. I'm afraid I'll be cut by him. Although he was a 6th-order cultivator, he wasn't sure if he could win against that boy. That boy's attack just now was too fierce. In the end, it was the 7th-order female cultivator who made the decision. I'll contact him and protect him. The rest of you follow him in secret. No one had any objections to her decision. But soon, everyone's expression became strange because the female cultivator tore at her clothes as she walked forward. She even used her hands to support her chest and tried to squeeze in the middle. A 6th-order cultivator couldn't bear to watch. For the sake of her sex mission, senior sister Lan was going all out. On the other side, Lu Yi rode on Hupa and continued forward. Not long after, he heard a faint cry for help. He listened carefully and found that it was indeed someone calling for help, and it was a woman. He didn't immediately go forward. They had encountered a lot of strange things along the way, so it was always right to be cautious. Not long after, Yi, who had been scouting ahead, returned and conveyed a message to Lu Yi. A woman was injured. It seemed that she had encountered some kind of monster beast, but there were no traces of traps nearby. Lu Yi nodded and had Hupa change direction slightly. Senior sister Lan, whose clothes were tattered, was still desperately calling for help. Suddenly, her battlefield mark moved. She checked it and was stunned. He ran away? That brat actually ran away? Under normal circumstances, if a woman in the wilderness called for help, wouldn't they run over to check on the situation? But why did that brat run away? Was he not shouting loudly enough? Was he not miserable enough? Senior sister Lan stood up in a daze, a vein popping out on her forehead. This little bastard, I really want to beat him up. Not long after, senior sister Lan, who had changed into a clean set of clothes, joined the others. Her face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. What do we do now? Senior sister Lan pondered for a moment with a gloomy look on her face. The original plan is that I'll find a way to get in touch with him, and you guys follow him in secret. We can, but this little brat has a mount and his speed is a bit fast. We can chase him for a few days without any problem, but after a long time, we definitely won't be able to catch up, a Sixth Order master said. Senior sister Lan said, Don't worry, we only need to protect him for a while. Once we reach the front, people from other sects will come and take over. Hearing this, everyone calmed down a little. If that was the case, then this mission wouldn't be too difficult. At night, Lu Yi was eating barbecued meat with Big Tiger beside the bonfire when he suddenly sensed spiritual energy fluctuations nearby. He quickly got up and vigilantly looked at the thick night ahead. Only a moment later, a figure flew over. Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed the hilt of his saber as he stared coldly at the newcomer. It was a disheveled woman with an enchanting figure. It was unknown what she had encountered, but at the moment, she looked flustered. After seeing Lu Yi, she rushed straight towards him and shouted, Senior brother, save me. Someone wants to kill me. Lu Yi slowly drew his saber, and senior sister Lan immediately sensed that something was wrong. She had a feeling that if she dared to approach, the boy in front of her would definitely cut her with his saber. The other party's eyes were sending her a very serious message. This little brat? She quickly stopped, tears welling up in her beautiful eyes. Senior brother, save me. Saying so, she took the initiative to raise the back of her hand, revealing her battle mark. Behind her, several figures chased after her. One of them paused, glanced over at Lu Yi, and immediately shouted, It's a Fifth Order cultivator, run. As soon as the voice fell, the few cultivators who chased after her ran away. Lu Yi frowned slightly and looked at the woman again. Seeing that she was only a Fourth Order cultivator, he slowly sheathed his saber. Senior sister Lan let out a long sigh and looked at Lu Yi pitifully. Senior brother, which camp are you on? Lu Yi ignored her and continued to eat the barbecued meat. Hupa raised his paw and gave him a push. Lu Yi leaned back and leaned on Hupo's belly. After a moment, his eyes moved slightly. Interesting. No wonder this woman's voice sounded familiar. It was the woman who asked for help during the day. He had never seen this woman before, but he had seen her from afar. It was Yi who ordered Hupa to push him. This woman couldn't ask for help during the day, so she came to me at night. What does she mean by deliberately getting close to me? And she's from Grand Heaven Alliance. While Lu Yi was deep in thought, senior sister Lan squeezed out a smile. Senior brother, can I hide here for a while? Sure. Why is this little thing so cold and arrogant? Senior sister Lan almost couldn't suppress the anger in her heart, but she still squeezed out a smile. Then I won't be polite. As she said this, she walked over as if she was familiar with him. She seemed to be unguarded. She seemed to be in a sorry state because she was being hunted down. There were some wounds on her body, and her clothes were stained with blood. Some of her body was exposed. She sat down in front of the bonfire and stretched out her hands to warm them. She thanked him. "Thank you for what you did just now. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid I would have died. I can't repay Senior Marshal Brother for saving my life." Lu Yi threw a piece of barbecue at her. Senior Sister Lan caught it in a hurry and was stunned for a moment. This guy is cold on the outside but warm on the inside? Thinking of this, Senior Sister Lan's anger subsided a little. Looking at the beast meat in her hand, it was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It was fragrant. Her stomach rumbled and she was hungry, so she started eating. "Senior brother, how should I address you?" Senior Sister Lan asked while eating. "I'm Lan Yudi. Don't talk when you eat." "Is it delicious?" "It's delicious. Didn't anyone tell you not to eat things given to you by strangers?" Lu Yi stood up and walked towards Lan Yudi step by step. Lan Yudi's face changed slightly as she vaguely realized something. She hurriedly threw the barbecue meat in her hand to the ground and pushed her spirit chi. It was extremely sluggish and her various major and minor circulations were about to collapse. Before she could stand up, a long saber was placed against her neck. Staring at each other, Lan Yudi was furious. "Little bastard, you drugged me?" She finally couldn't hold back the anger she had been suppressing, but what was more important was the humiliation she felt. She was a 7th-order cultivator, but she had been drugged by a 5th-order cultivator without anyone noticing. If news of this were to spread, she wouldn't be able to face anyone in the future. The main thing was that she didn't expect him to do such a thing. No one would do such a thing. "Don't worry, that drug will only make your spirit chi flow sluggish temporarily. It won't cause any harm." He had found it in the storage bag of the 9 Stars Sect's young master. Later, he had Hua Ci appraise it and memorize the effects of each drug, so he had kept it. "Tell me, why did you approach me?" "What?" Lan Yudi was puzzled. "You were the one crying for help during the day, and now you're the one asking for help at night. Is there such a coincidence?" Lan Yudi really didn't understand. This little brat clearly hadn't seen her during the day, so how did he recognize her? Just by her voice? Looking at Lu Yi, who was looking down at her, Lan Yudi suddenly smiled. "Amazing! The target of this mission was unexpectedly shrewd. You admit it?" Lan Yudi lowered her head, her long hair covering her expression. Lu Yi immediately sensed that something was wrong because the aura around this woman's body was becoming denser at a speed visible to the naked eye. Without any hesitation, he chopped down with his saber. Lan Yudi, who had been sitting in front of Lu Yi, was now upside down. With one hand on the ground, she kicked at Lu Yi's face. This kick was so powerful that Lu Yi hurriedly leaned back and retreated a few steps. By the time he stabilized himself, Lan Yudi was already 15 meters away from him. She reached out and touched her slender white neck. Her hand was sticky, and the corners of her eyes couldn't help twitching. "Do you really want to kill me?" If she hadn't dodged fast enough, her head would have been chopped off. Just how vicious and merciless is this guy? Across from her, Lu Ye's expression became dignified because he discovered that this woman wasn't a 4th-order cultivator, but a 7th order. He didn't know what method she had used to hide her cultivation. No wonder the things he found in the storage bag of the 9 Stars Sect young master didn't have much of an effect. Her cultivation was 3 minor realms higher than he expected, so it was easy for her to suppress the medicinal properties. Meanwhile, Hoopa had already hidden himself in the darkness, waiting for an opportunity to strike. "This old lady is in a bad mood right now, so I've decided to beat you up first," Lan Yudi said as she suddenly turned into a blur and rushed towards Lu Yi. So fast. He had never come into contact with a 7th-order cultivator before, so he didn't know how powerful a 7th-order cultivator's attacks were, but this woman's speed was too fast. Fortunately, he had the Dragon Spring body tempering, otherwise, with his eyesight, he really wouldn't have been able to see her movements. Lan Yudi's figure rushed towards him from the front, but Lu Yi swung his saber to the side. The long saber brushed past the tip of Lan Yudi's nose, and she flew back a few steps. She looked at Lu Yi in shock. Did he see through my movements just now? Or was that slash just a coincidence? Without the slightest pause, her figure once again turned into a blur. Lu Yi constantly adjusted his direction and swung his saber again and again. A moment later, Lan Yudi was shocked because she discovered that Lu Yi had really seen through her movements. Every slash of his saber landed on her attack path. Chapter 147. Another saber fell, and with a clanging sound, sparks flew. Lan Yudi, who should have been forced back by this saber, didn't. At some unknown time, a short saber had appeared in her hand. It was this short saber that had blocked Lu Yi's attack. Lu Yi hurriedly retracted his blade and slashed again. Lan Yudi snorted coldly. Too big of an opening. Even though Lu Yi saw this punch, he was unable to guard against it. In a hurry, a defensive spirit rune appeared in front of his abdomen. With a boom, spirit energy exploded. This punch sent Lu Yi back 70 to 80 feet. His stomach churned and he almost couldn't breathe. Lan Yudi was astonished. What was that? She felt that her punch had shattered something, but in the fierce battle, she didn't see it clearly. She didn't have time to think. Lu Yi, who had just stabilized himself, rushed towards her like a gust of wind. Her vision was immediately filled with the gleam of a blade. Lan Yudi twisted her body to dodge. Her aura began to change and her speed became even faster than before. Clanging sounds continuously rang out as the long and short blades collided, creating a continuous symphony in the night. Roar! Hoopa suddenly pounced from behind Lan Yudi. This woman seemed to have eyes on the back of her head as she easily dodged. At the same time, she kicked out and sent the sturdy Hoopa flying. However, in midair, Hoopa's long tail curled and lashed out at Lan Yudi like a whip. This caught Lan Yudi off guard. She gritted her teeth and growled, "What a fierce beast!" She hurriedly retreated. At the same time, Lu Yi had already scurried to Hoopa's side. He flipped onto the tiger's back and prepared to flee. Although they hadn't fought for long, he was certain that he wasn't this woman's match. If he didn't run now, when would he? However, his expression soon turned serious. This was because several spirit energy fluctuations were rapidly approaching from all directions. In the blink of an eye, they were right in front of him. Why are they fighting? A youth stared at the messy battlefield, dumbfounded. They had originally planned to protect them from the shadows not far away. However, when they heard the sounds of battle, they thought that the people of Myriad Devil Ridge had attacked and hurried over to provide support. They didn't expect to see this scene. "Stop fighting, stop fighting, stop fighting," someone shouted. Someone shouted, "Junior Brother Lu, please calm down. This is a misunderstanding." Riding atop the tiger's back, Lu Yi glanced around coldly. There were 6 people here, 3 of whom were 6th order while the other 3 were 5th order. If he wasn't mistaken, one of the people who had shouted just now was the one who had chased after Lan Yudai. These guys were in cahoots. Surrounded by such a powerful team, Lu Yi could only choose to escape from the direction of the 5th order masters, and even then he might not succeed. However, what made Lu Yi somewhat concerned was that these people did not show any hostility towards him. One of them even addressed him as Junior Brother Lu. Ever since he had entered the Spirit Stream battlefield, other than the Loose Rangers Society members no one else knew his surname. Whenever he interacted with outsiders, he referred to himself as One Leaf. How did this person know that his surname was Lu? There was also the strange encounter in the past few days. He faintly felt that there was a connection between these things. The 6th order who had just spoken walked over to Lan Yudai and asked in confusion, "Why are you fighting with him? Didn't she say that she would stay by his side and protect him? How could she protect him like this?" Lan Yudai also came back to her senses and wore an embarrassed expression. "I couldn't hold myself back." The main reason was because this little brat had actually drugged her and she had fallen for it. However, the fight just now had allowed her to see how terrifying this 5th order Lu Yi was. This guy's fighting style was too aggressive and his attacks were extremely ruthless. She had never seen such a 5th order master before. Compared to him, her own 5th order master was as gentle as a little white rabbit. No wonder that group of Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had been cut down like melons and vegetables during the day. His powerful aggressiveness and ruthless attacks could easily intimidate cultivators in the same realm and cause them to succumb to his blade. Who are you? Lu Yi did not relax his vigilance. When he asked this question, he glanced towards one of the Fifth Order masters. Breaking through from this side had the highest chance of success. The young man who had spoken earlier secretly felt a headache. He could see Lu Ye's vigilance and distrust, which was understandable. If he were in Lu Ye's position, he would also not easily trust a group of strangers. He did not directly answer Lu Ye's question to avoid any more misunderstandings. At the same time, to ensure that the conversation went smoothly, he raised his hand and said solemnly, "Purple Cloud Mountain's Chi Xn respectfully invites Heaven's Secret. The 7 of us have no malice towards junior brother Lu Yi and are only here for the sect's mission. Please bear witness to this." Something seemed to fall from the heavens. Chi Xn looked at Lu Yi on the tiger's back and said, "Junior brother, please calm down." Lu Yi frowned and slowly sheathed his long saber. The Heaven's Secret oath was not something to be trifled with. Since the other party dared to swear such an oath, it meant that they had no malice towards him. Chi Xion's face turned solemn. "I know that junior brother must have a lot of questions, but this is not the place to talk. Junior brother, please follow us to a secluded place, how about it?" Lu Yi was silent for a moment before nodding. All right. He really did have a lot of questions now. "Please." Chi Xen stretched out his hand and led the way. The others also stepped forward to follow him. "Wait a moment." Lan Yudi raised her hand. "Senior sister, what's the matter?" Chi Xian turned around and asked. Lan Yudi's expression was somewhat awkward. "I've been poisoned. I can't circulate my spiritual power, so I can't walk." Although she had forcibly suppressed the poison, it had only caused it to erupt even more violently. At this moment, her spiritual power was like stagnant water, unable to be circulated at all. Everyone was shocked. Who did it? Lan Yudi turned her head to look at Lu Yi, while Lu Yi looked to the side at the knight. The group's expressions became strange. Some people wanted to laugh but did not dare to. Their shoulders trembled as they tried to hold back their laughter. However, they finally understood why their senior sister had obviously gone to protect Lu Yi, yet ended up fighting. No one would be able to bear such a thing. Chi Xen said weakly, "Then should I carry you?" Scram. "This old lady doesn't want you to carry her." Lan Yudi flatly refused, then looked at Lu Yi and said, "Whoever did it will take responsibility. Let your mount carry me." Lu Yi thought for a moment, then raised his hand and patted the tiger's back. Lan Yudi stepped forward and jumped onto the tiger's back. Hoopa was somewhat unwilling, but he still endured it. "Let's go." Chi Xine continued to lead the way. The group moved forward in silence, their speed extremely fast. 2 hours later, everyone found a cave to hide in. Lu Yi waited for the group from Purple Cloud Mountain to enter before leading Hoopa in. He naturally could not hide his intentions, but everyone pretended not to notice. The cave was dry, so everyone sat down cross-legged. Lu Yi was the first to speak. "How do you know my name?" Chi Xen laughed when he heard this. "Junior brother really doesn't know anything about your situation?" "In what way?" "It seems that junior brother really doesn't understand his situation, huh?" Chi Xen sighed and said, "Junior brother's identity has already been exposed. Now, not only do we know that you are a disciple of the Blue Blood sect, but many people throughout the Spirit Stream battlefield also know." Lu Yi frowned. His identity had been exposed? How had it been exposed? Also, what did many people mean? Ever since he entered the Spirit Stream battlefield, he had been very careful and cautious. Before entering, the sect master had warned him not to expose his identity as a disciple of the Blue Blood sect. Although he did not know why the sect master had warned him, the sect master would not harm him. When interacting with outsiders, he only referred to himself as Yi. Even if Hua Si and the others knew his name, it was impossible for them to know his background. Only one person had recognized him, and that person was a slave miner he had once worked with in Evil Moon Valley's mine at the entrance of in City's Heavenly Secret Commerce Union. That was just a coincidence. Lu Yi did not say much to the slave miner at the time and quickly left after being recognized. However, after leaving Ian City, he was hunted down by Dong Shai. He suddenly remembered that before Dong Shai died, he had used the battlefield mark to send a message. At that time, he had thought that Dong Shai was gathering helpers, but no one had come to kill him, so the matter had been left unsettled. Dong Shai would have died without a doubt, and even if he had gathered helpers, it would have been too late. But what if he was not gathering helpers? Was it Dong Shai? When the Burning Moon Mountain disciple from Ian City had contacted him, Dong Shai had seen him. Perhaps he had used some method to inquire about his background from that person. Before Dong Shai died, he had said that he would wait for him on the road to the Yellow Springs. It sounded like the useless barking of a dying man, but what if he really felt that way? What's wrong with my identity? This was what Lu Yi did not understand the most. Before he entered the Spirit Stream battlefield, the sect master had specifically warned him about this matter so that Lu Yi would understand that revealing his identity would not benefit him. He had once guessed that the Jade Blood sect might have done something that angered the heavens and caused the Jade Blood sect's disciples to be in a bad situation on the Spirit Stream battlefield. I don't know what the specific problem is, but it's related to some old secrets. I only know that the entire Spirit Stream battlefield is in chaos because of Junior Brother. Many sects in Myriad Demon Ridge want you dead, and many sects in Grand Heaven Alliance are thinking of ways to protect you. Our Purple Cloud Mountain is one of them. We have received orders from our master to come and find you. Lu Yi was confused when he heard this. The Spirit Stream battlefield is in chaos because of me? He was just a fifth-order cultivator, so how could he influence the situation of the entire Spirit Stream battlefield? The root cause was definitely not him, but his identity as a disciple of the Jade Blood sect. If Chi Xen had not lied to him, then the sect he had been forced to choose seemed to be hiding some incredible secrets. We young people don't know the specifics of the past, but as far as I know, the Jade Blood sect was still a first-grade sect a few decades ago. Lan Yu Dai, who had been dispelling the pill toxins, suddenly spoke. She had the highest cultivation, so she knew more. Later, for some unknown reason, the sect's grade fell year after year until it finally fell to the 9th order and was on the verge of being abolished. The Jade Blood sect has not accepted any disciples for 30 years, and if no new disciples join the sect's name will be completely erased in 2 months' time during the sect's grade assessment. Chapter 148. Many sects in the Myriad Demon Ridge have been waiting for this day, but half a year ago, the Jade Blood sect accepted a disciple, allowing the Jade Blood sect to continue existing. That disciple was you. Lan Yudi looked at Lu Yi quietly. Originally, everyone thought you were dead because it was rumored that Elder Tang of the Jade Blood sect was ambushed when he brought you back to the sect. Elder Tang was seriously injured and you died in the aftermath of the battle. However, a few days ago, news about you suddenly spread in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Therefore, many sects in the Myriad Demon Ridge who don't want the Jade Blood sect to continue existing have secretly made their move. They want to kill you halfway because if they kill you, the Jade Blood sect will cease to exist in 2 months. Lu Yi didn't say anything as he digested this information. He never knew that his life and death were related to the survival of the Jade Blood sect. Hadn't accepted a disciple in 30 years? Lu Yi recalled that when he asked the sect master about the disciples on the Flying Dragon ship, the sect master had avoided answering. At that time, he only felt that his sect's talent had withered and the sect was declining, but now it seemed that the situation was more serious than he thought. It wasn't that the sect's talent had withered or the sect was declining, it was that the sect was about to be eliminated. In the past few days, he had encountered so many cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge's camp. That made sense. Those fellows were here specifically to find him. No wonder they were so happy to see him. Many sects from the Myriad Demon Ridge have already made their move. Many sects from the Grand Heaven Alliance have also intervened. One side wants to kill you and the other side wants to protect you. The situation at the Spirit Stream battlefield has become extremely chaotic. Which side will win will depend on whether you can return to the Jade Blood sect's station alive. Our sect was indebted to the Jade Blood sect in the past, so we were ordered by our sect to escort you. We didn't reveal our identities immediately because we were afraid you wouldn't trust us and also to guard against the Myriad Demon Ridge's actions. It's more convenient to hide in the dark after all. Senior sister Lan can protect you. That's all the information we have right now. You can ask anything you want. Chi Xian said simply and looked at Lu Yi. Of course, Lu Yi had many things he wanted to ask, such as how the sect master's injuries were and why the Jade Blood sect was being targeted like this. However, others might not know these things. He thought about it and said, "So, there will be people with high cultivation levels coming to kill me? Of course, there will be people from the core circle who will make a move. However, even if those people can fly, it will take some time for them to rush over. Right now, the people we need to deal with don't have high cultivation because they are all rushing over from nearby. However, the further we go, the stronger the enemies will be. However, you don't have to worry too much. Since the Myriad Demons Ridge has taken action, the Grand Sky Alliance has also taken action. At the very least, that person has already set off. As long as we can delay until that person arrives, it won't be a problem to keep you alive." "Who is that?" Lu Yi asked. Lan Yudi shook her head. "When you see him, you'll naturally understand. That person's temper isn't good. I don't want to talk about him behind his back. This person must be very strong and has a deep relationship with the Blue Blood sect," Lu Yi thought to himself. "I don't have anything to ask for now," Lu Yi said. "Then let's make a plan." Lan Yudi glanced at Hu Po, who was prostrating himself behind Lu Yi. "You have two choices now. One is to travel with us alone. That way, you'll be able to avoid being noticed. Everyone knows that you're riding a snow-white tiger. As long as those from the Myriad Demons Ridge see this white tiger, they'll be able to find you. It's the most eye-catching symbol. I choose the second choice. If the cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge took Hu Po as their target, then Hu Po would definitely die once he was separated from him." Lan Yudi snorted softly. "Then take this big tiger with you. If you encounter any danger, it'll be easier for you to escape." She slowly stood up, her spirit energy having returned to normal. Looking at everyone with a serious expression, she said, "We'll follow the original plan. We'll split into two groups. I'll protect junior brother Lu and try to avoid the cultivators from the Myriad Demons Ridge. I'll leave the rest to you." The other 6 stood up and responded, "Yes." "Then let's go." This group of people was very straightforward. Now that they had contacted Lu Yi, they were ready to act. After all, staying here would only increase the number of variables. Lu Ye's mood was complicated. He never thought that a little fifth-order cultivator like him would affect the situation of the entire Spirit Stream battlefield. For a moment, he didn't know whether to feel honored or nervous. "Many thanks, everyone," he bowed deeply. Whether the situation was as Lan Yudi and the others had said remained to be verified, but there was a high probability that this group was not deceiving him. He wasn't going to refuse their kindness. Firstly, he wanted to verify their words. Secondly, if the situation was really so serious, he definitely wouldn't be able to survive with his current fifth-order cultivation. If he wanted to survive, he could only rely on the power left behind by the Blue Blood sect. "Ha!" Lan Yudi chuckled, "That's more like it. But if you really want to thank us, then live well. We don't know about the grievances of the previous generation, but if you die, then our mission will have failed." Saying so, she raised her hand and wiped her battlefield mark. A blue light flew towards Lu Yi. Lu Yi raised his hand to meet it, and the blue light fell into the back of his hand. Lu Yi felt that another brand had appeared in his battlefield mark. At that moment, a message came from his battlefield mark. Lu Yi checked it and found that it was from Green Feather Mountain Xiejin. "Junior brother Yi, I heard some rumors. I don't know if it's you. If it is you, be careful. Myriad Demons Ridge seems to have dispatched many people to look for you." Lu Yi thought about it for a moment before replying, "Many thanks for informing me." Even Xiejin had heard some of the recent rumors. It was obvious that this matter had become a hot topic in the entire Spirit Stream battlefield. When he sent this message, the 6 people from Purple Cloud Mountain had already left under Chi Xian's lead. Lan Yudi stayed behind. The two waited silently in the cave for half an hour before Lan Yudi suddenly said, "Let's go." She jumped onto the tiger's back, causing Lu Yi to stare at her in amazement. "What are you waiting for? Come on, I can't run away with you, right?" Lan Yudi urged. Lu Yi could only follow suit, but he sat behind Lan Yudi. Hoopa scurried out of the cave, and under the guidance of Lan Yudi, it began to run. It had heard the conversation between Lu Yi and the people from Mount Purple Cloud, so it knew that the current situation wasn't very good. Therefore, it moved quietly, trying its best to avoid making any noise. Your pet beast is quite fast, Lan Yudi said, trying to defuse the awkwardness in her heart. The main issue was that there was a fiery aura on her back, which made her feel very uncomfortable. However, since she had to protect Lu Yi, she had no other choice but to ride with him. Lan Yudi seemed to have a carefree personality, but she had never been so close to a man before. While riding, it was inevitable that there would be some physical contact, causing goosebumps to appear on her smooth back. For hours later, intense spiritual power fluctuations suddenly came from nearby. Someone was fighting fiercely in that direction. However, Lan Yudi had already directed Hoopa in a different direction, perfectly avoiding that area. For her, the most important thing right now was to prevent Lu Yi from being exposed. If there were cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge nearby, Chi Xan and the others would deal with them. An eagle in the sky continued to follow Hoopa. Under the eagle's gaze, it was clear as day what was happening on the ground. Forward, forward, forward. Every 4 to 6 hours, Lan Yudi would have Lu Yi stop and rest for a while. She and Lu Yi naturally didn't need to rest, but Hoopa needed to replenish his strength. Chi Xin and the others, who were secretly eliminating hidden dangers, also needed to rest. One day later, on the way, Lan Yudi suddenly asked, "Junior brother Lu, are you sure you can block a 6th order cultivator?" Lu Yi responded in a muffled voice. Lan Yudi nodded. When she briefly fought with Lu Yi before, she realized that Lu Yi's strength far exceeded that of an ordinary 5th order cultivator. An ordinary 5th order cultivator wouldn't be able to block her attacks, even if she hadn't used her full strength at that time. Then let me see what you're capable of. Later, there will be a woman in red, you'll have to entangle her, don't show her any mercy. Is she beautiful? I don't know if she's beautiful or not, but her figure is very good. Hey, you won't really go easy on her, will you? Lan Yudi's pretty face sank. She almost wanted to change direction. However, if they didn't deal with the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators in front of them, Chi Xin and the others would be in trouble. Chi Xin and the others had already fought with another group of Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. However, it was too late to change direction now because Hoopa could already see the figures of the people in front of them from afar. Lan Yudi's body was half squatting on the tiger's back. She took out a short knife in each of her hands. Her curvaceous body was filled with explosive power at this moment. She looked like a cheetah that was about to pounce on its prey. The people in front also saw Hoopa's figure at this moment. At first, they were stunned, but then they became overjoyed. One of them shouted, "It's Lu Yi!" A vein popped out on Lu Yi's forehead. He secretly swore that if he had the chance, he would definitely beat up that Vitality Sex Lashan. The distance between them quickly closed. 200 meters away, Lan Yudi shouted, "Big Bai, be careful." She was warning Hoopa. Hoopa growled, "You're Big Bai. Your whole family is Big Bai." Lan Yudi's figure suddenly blurred as she rushed forward 200 meters. Lu Yi looked up and saw an afterimage brazenly rushing into the group of cultivators. A spell technique flew out and scattered the afterimage. Lan Yudi's figure had already appeared behind the enemies. Lu Yi didn't even see how she got there. He immediately understood that Lan Yudi hadn't used her full strength in the previous fight. Saber lights flashed, accompanied by a blood-curdling scream. A 6th order cultivator fell into a pool of blood. It was an instant kill. Even if there was a gap in strength between the two of them, it wasn't easy to achieve this. The Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were obviously frightened. One of them cried out, "A 7th order ghost cultivator. Be careful." The scene immediately turned chaotic. Chapter 149. At the same time that Lan Yudi killed one of the enemies, Hoopa was already 10 meters away from the group of people. A spell technique flew towards him, but Hoopa's charging figure suddenly slid to the side, nimbly dodging the attack. At the same time, Lu Ye's figure leapt up, stepped on the tiger's back, and directly attacked a woman in red. Lan Yudai was right. This woman's figure was very good, especially her chest, which was quite heavy. She was a magic cultivator, and the spell technique that had attacked Lan Yudai and Hoopa before was cast by her. She was also Lu Ye's target. In mid-air, Lu Yi raised his hand, drew his sword, and slashed out. A spell technique that was heading towards him was cut apart, and spirit energy exploded. Another spell technique flew towards him. Although her casting speed wasn't as fast as Dong Shu Ye's, it wasn't slow either. Lu Yi couldn't avoid it. A flush of red appeared on the woman's face. She had hit him, and with her fifth-order cultivation, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. She was rich. She seemed to have seen a mountain of spirit stones, an amount that she wouldn't be able to use in her lifetime. Many sects in the Myriad Devil Ridge had issued a bounty for Lu Yi. No matter who killed Lu Yi, they could go to those sects to receive the bounty. If these bounties were added together, it would be a fortune that would move even a true lake stage expert. So, seeing that her spell technique had succeeded, the woman in red's mood surged. However, in the next moment, Lu Yi had arrived in front of her, his long sword covered in fiery red spirit energy slashing down. As the sword light flashed, the woman instinctively pushed her spirit energy barrier to block in front of her. With a crisp sound, the sturdy spirit energy barrier shattered, and the sharp sword slashed down diagonally from the top of the woman's head, cutting through her slender neck without any hindrance. The last thought that flashed through the woman's mind was, how did this Lu Yi appear in front of me? Her vision turned upside down, and her large eyes blinked twice before her consciousness fell into darkness. The last thing she saw was Lu Yi stabbing at the back of one of her junior brothers. The battle started and ended very quickly. After Lu Yi killed the 6th-order spell cultivator, he also killed a 5th-order weapon cultivator, and then, that was it. Although she was also a 6th-order Dharma cultivator like Dong Shu Yi, the red-clothed woman's strength was much weaker than Dong Shu Ye's. After all, the former had fallen from the 7th order. Although his cultivation was no longer the same, his means were still there. Coupled with the fact that the woman had allowed Lu Yi to get close to her due to her agitated state of mind, how could she have a good ending? Dong Shu Ye's life was lost after Lu Yi, and Lu Ye's life was lost. Lu Ye's heart, and Lu Ye's and Lan Yudai, and Lan Yudai. This guy's killing people, both of them thought so. There were 5 cultivators from the Myriad Demon's Ridge in this group. 2 of them were at the 6th level, while the other 3 were at the 5th level. Lan Yudai's original plan was to have Lu Yi restrain the female Dharma cultivator for a while. After she dealt with the others, she would then deal with the Dharma cultivator. However, Lu Yi had slaughtered the Dharma cultivator with just a few slashes and even helped her kill one. I've underestimated you. Lan Yudai was very satisfied with Lu Yi's expression. She secretly sighed that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. The last disciple of a behemoth at the end of its road was so amazing. If the people of Myriad Demon Ridge saw his performance just now, they would be even more determined to eradicate him. Now, Myriad Demon Ridge wanted to kill Lu Yi, but it was only related to the survival of Blue Blood sect. As long as Lu Yi was killed, Blue Blood sect would be removed from the sect in 2 months. If they knew that this Blue Blood sect disciple could kill enemies above his realm so easily, they would be even more uneasy. Once such a person grew up, he would be a nightmare for any Myriad Demon Ridge force. As for the previous talk of having tender feelings for the fairer sex, it didn't exist. The beautiful female cultivator's eyes were still open. Let's go. Lan Yudai called out, and Hoopa ran over. He wanted to help just now, but the battle ended too quickly, leaving him no room to do anything. The 2 of them continued on their journey. Lan Yudai's heart was heavy. Although the battle just now had ended quickly, it also revealed a problem. Those from the inner circle would soon arrive. There would definitely be more powerful enemies ahead. If those from the inner circle arrived, the core circle wouldn't be too far away. When the time came, the situation would be beyond her ability to deal with. Which sect was that? Lu Yi asked. Who knows? Lan Yudai replied. What are you doing? Remember them? Lan Yudai smiled. You're ambitious. She paused for a moment, then said, "If we don't die after this mission, I'll go investigate for you. Then I'll have to thank you." "No problem." As they continued on their journey, they occasionally encountered fierce battles. But the cultivators they needed to deal with weren't too strong, so Lu Yi and Lan Yu Dai were able to hold on by working together. Along the way, Lan Yu Dai would occasionally send out a message or search for information, as if she was contacting someone. 2 days later, she sighed and a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. She sent out a message to Lu Yi. "Chi Xin and the others have consumed too much energy. We can't catch up. Do we have to wait for them?" "We can't wait." Lan Yu Dai shook her head. "There will be others ahead to receive them." Lu Yi nodded. For the next half a day, she was relatively quiet, as if she wasn't in a good mood. Lu Yi didn't know what she had encountered. In the evening, she suddenly raised her head and pointed in a direction. "Run in that direction. No matter what you encounter, don't stop. Try your best to avoid fighting with those from the Myriad Devil Ridge." She crouched down on the tiger's back again. "Where are you going?" Lu Yi frowned. "There are a lot of people from the Myriad Devil Ridge ahead. I'm going to pin them down." She turned her head and gave Lu Yi a deep look. "Don't die." After saying this, she rushed out like a cheetah. Hoopa continued to advance in the direction she pointed. After a short while, spiritual power fluctuations came from the side. It should be Lan Yu Dai and the people from the Myriad Devil Ridge fighting. As the battle grew louder and louder, Hoopa carried Lu Yi and quickly left. In the jungle, several corpses lay on the ground, blood and severed limbs scattered everywhere. The originally dense jungle had been cleared out by the aftermath of the battle. In the middle of the battlefield, Lan Yu Dai, who was holding 2 scimitars in her hands, was dancing. 3 Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were fighting fiercely with her. Judging from the aura, the leader was a 7th Order cultivator, a 6th Order cultivator, and a 5th Order cultivator. With the 7th Order cultivator as the main force and the other 2 as support, the 3 of them attacked continuously. Lan Yu Dai already had several wounds on her body, and her clothes were dyed red with blood. In such a situation, even if she wanted to escape, she wouldn't be able to. Not to mention, there was still a 6th Order cultivator nearby, eyeing her covetously. From time to time, he would cast a spirit technique, making it impossible for Lan Yu Dai to defend herself. At this moment, she seemed to have gone crazy. Lavender lines had appeared on her cheeks at some point, making her look both beautiful and bewitching. Although she was outnumbered, Lan Yu Dai's aura was more powerful. Her 2 scimitars danced around, causing the 3 cultivators to be shocked. They didn't know what was wrong with this woman. The 7th Order cultivator was complaining incessantly. 80% of Lan Yu Dai's attacks were aimed at him, as if she wanted to drag him down with her even if she had to die. In the midst of the fierce battle, a tiger's roar suddenly came from the side. Both sides were startled. The Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators raised their heads and saw a large snow-white tiger springing out from the side and charging towards them. A large snow-white tiger? Their expressions brightened, and one of them shouted, "Lu Yi is nearby." No wonder this woman is so desperate. It turns out that she's covering for Lu Yi. While everyone's attention was on Hoopa, a figure had already silently climbed onto the back of the spell cultivator standing outside the battle circle. That spell cultivator's body suddenly sank, and his instincts told him that something was wrong. A sharp and ruthless howl sounded in his ears. For a moment, his mind was distracted, and the technique he was about to use on Lan Yu Dai was interrupted. A gust of wind hit him from behind, and he felt a slight pain in his neck. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a person rushing past him. He wanted to raise his hand, but he found that he couldn't control his body. Lan Yu Dai, who was facing him, immediately sped up her attacks, her 2 scimitars turning into scimitars that filled the sky. Lu Yi rushed to the edge of the battlefield in a few steps and slashed his scimitar at the 6th Order cultivator. The 6th Order cultivator was originally wandering around the edge of the battlefield, restraining Lan Yu Dai's energy. His attention was attracted by Hoopa, so he couldn't react in time. The scimitar slashed open a huge wound on his back, piercing his internal organs. The sixth-order cultivator let out a blood-curdling scream, but it stopped abruptly as the long scimitar pierced through his heart and came out of his body. The remaining two sixth-order cultivators turned pale with fright. Originally, they had the absolute advantage. Although many of them had died, that was because of Lan Yudai's sneak attack. The sneak attack of a seventh-order ghost cultivator wasn't easy to resist. Fortunately, they had already stabilized the situation, and as long as they delayed, they would be able to take down Lan Yudai. But at this critical moment, Lu Yi suddenly attacked, killing two sixth-order cultivators in a flash. 2 against 2. Lan Yudai suddenly slowed down her offensive, causing the two myriad Demon Ridge cultivators to be unable to adapt. Lu Yi had already found the fifth-order cultivator with his scimitar. After 2 slashes, the fifth-order cultivator's face turned pale. Although they were both fifth-order cultivators, he discovered that he couldn't compete with Lu Ye's speed or strength. He barely managed to block the third slash, but his body couldn't stop itself from falling backwards, leaving his chest wide open. This sixth-order cultivator was quite clever. When he realized that something was wrong, he had already reached into his storage bag and took out a golden body talisman and slapped it on himself. Enveloped by the golden light, he felt a sense of security. With a crash, the golden light shattered and a huge wound appeared on the sixth-order cultivator's body. Blood gushed out as he fell backwards. Hoopa pounced over and bit the sixth-order cultivator's neck. With a crack, the bones in his neck broke, and Hoopo's mouth was filled with blood. At this moment, the seventh-order cultivator flew back several meters. He suddenly raised his sword in front of him and spat out a mouthful of blood. His sword immediately turned into a stream of light and shot towards Lu Yi, arriving in front of him in the blink of an eye. Sword manipulation. Lan Yudai's beautiful face turned pale. Chapter 150. As Lan Yudai cried out in alarm, the short knife in her hand flew out, aiming directly at the sword light. However, the sword light was extremely fast, and the knife slashed at empty air. The sharp sword light arrived in front of Lu Yi in the blink of an eye. Lu Yi felt a sense of crisis he had never felt before. At this moment, his whole body went cold as he felt the aura of death enveloping him. At this moment of life and death, a larger and more solid spirit inscription appeared in front of him. Almost at the same time, the sword light arrived. Kacha. The sturdy spirit inscription only managed to block the sword light for a moment before it shattered. Even if Lu Yi desperately pushed his spirit energy, he couldn't stabilize it. Fortunately, this momentary block allowed him to lean to the side. As the sword light flew past him, Lu Yi felt a slight pain in his neck. Without any hesitation, he was about to rush forward with his dagger when he felt another gust of wind behind his head. He hurriedly urged his spirit inscription to protect his back. Kacha. The spirit inscription shattered and Lu Yi rolled on the ground. He felt a burst of energy above his head, and when he looked up, he saw the sword light. The sword light buzzed as it changed direction and attacked him for the third time. Lu Ye's concentration was high. This thing's lethality was the strongest he had ever encountered. If he was careless and was hit by it, he would die without a doubt. Just as Lu Yi stared at the sword beam and was about to activate the defensive spirit rune, a scream suddenly came from the side. Accompanied by the scream, the sword beam retracted and returned to its original appearance as a long sword before falling to the ground. Lu Yi followed the voice and looked over, only to see Lan Yudai holding a dagger and stabbing it into the seventh-order weapon cultivator's chest. The weapon cultivator didn't die immediately, but his expression was fierce as he shouted, "You can't escape." Lan Yudai stretched out her hand and the dagger she had just thrown flew back to her. She quickly backhanded it and cut the man's neck. Blood spurted out, but she managed to dodge in time. The seventh-order weapon cultivator fell to his knees and clutched his throat with both hands. A red light flew out from his body and landed on the back of Lan Yudai's hand. The lavender lines on her face slowly faded and Lan Yudai's figure staggered a few steps, seemingly unsteady. Lu Yi hurriedly stepped forward and supported her. "Let's go," Lan Yudai urged. There were spirit force fluctuations nearby. The commotion caused by the battle here must have alerted the surrounding cultivators. However, from how Lan Yudi had come alone, there was a high chance that she was from the Myriad Devil Ridge. Lu Yi grabbed her body and leaped onto the tiger's back. Hooper immediately started running. The spiritual energy fluctuations behind him slowly faded away, but Lu Ye's expression was extremely dignified. He could feel that there was something wrong with Lan Yudi's situation. Just now, she had used some kind of secret technique that required her to pay a certain price. Now that the battle was over, her aura had become somewhat weak and her body was burning hot. Yi was already scouting ahead, looking for a suitable hiding place. As night fell, Lu Yi brought Lan Yudi to hide in a cave, which was found by Yi. After putting Lan Yudi down from the tiger's back, Lu Yi furrowed his brows. This woman's body was covered with injuries and he hadn't had the time to deal with them. What was even more troublesome was that this woman had actually fainted. Her injuries were more serious than they appeared on the surface. Treat her injuries, Lu Yi ordered. He then took out the medicinal powder and clean cotton cloth that Hua Xi had given to Yi. He immediately came out. During her time at Ying Mountain, she had learned a lot about medicine from Hua Xi and Ruan Lingyu. Although she didn't have any special treatment methods, she could still bandage simple wounds. Hua Xi had specially concocted these medicinal powders. They were extremely effective on wounds like swords and sabers. While Yi busied herself, Lu Yi sat cross-legged. He took out some spirit pills and swallowed them to replenish his spiritual energy. In the latter half of the night, Lan Yudi slowly woke up. She cautiously stood up and observed her surroundings. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. Lu Yi threw a piece of jerky at her. She reached out and took a bite. After eating a bit and recovering a bit of strength, she said hoarsely, "I was too careless. I thought I could escape." If Lu Yi hadn't suddenly turned around to look for her during the day, she definitely would have died in that place. "Are Qi Exin and the others dead?" Lu Yi suddenly asked. Lan Yudi looked at him in surprise. She didn't know why Lu Yi would suddenly ask this. She had never told Lu Yi about the deaths of her fellow disciples. Two died. Lan Yudi's eyes dimmed. Lu Yi was silent. He didn't even know which two had died. Lan Yudi said, "You should go on your own. Bringing me along will slow you down. With my injuries, I won't be able to fully recover in a short time. I'm afraid I won't be of much help if we encounter any enemies along the way. Let's go together." Lan Yudi was a bit annoyed. "I already said that going together will slow you down. Don't you understand?" "I understand." "Since you understand, then go on your own." Lu Yi looked up at her and insisted, "Let's go together." Lan Yudi said in a low voice, "I think you really don't understand human language. Do you know that for this damned mission, 2 of my junior brothers and junior sisters died? I didn't even know you before. I only came to find you on the orders of my sect. You're not my son, so why should I fight to the death for you? Why should we, the younger generation, bear the grudges of the previous generation? But do you know that in places where you can't see, there are many people who are entangled with the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge just to prevent them from coming to find you? During this time, the number of declarations of war between sects has increased by several dozen times compared to before. What are we doing this for? What are they doing this for? Isn't it because they want you to live? So, hurry up and leave. Don't let my 2 junior brothers and junior sisters die in vain. Don't let those people who are secretly working for you die in vain." Lan Yudi said a bunch of nonsense. She thought that Lu Yi would listen to her, but who would have thought that Lu Yi would just sit there indifferently and look at her? "Are you done?" Lan Yudi was speechless for a while. Finally, she choked out, "This old lady really wants to beat you up." Lu Yi sighed and said, "Half a year ago, I was just a slave miner in Evil Moon Valley. I was rescued by Grand Heaven Alliance and was guided by someone to join the Blue Blood sect. However, before the sect master could bring me back to the sect, I was intercepted halfway. The sect master was forced to send me to the Spirit Stream battlefield. I don't even know what the Blue Blood sect is like. These days, I only have one goal, and that is to go to the Blue Blood sect's encampment. As you said, why should we, the younger generation, bear the grudges of the previous generation? Including you, including me, we don't even know what happened to the previous generation. I think that since I have already joined the sect and have been branded with it, I naturally have to bear the grudges of the sect. This is something that no one can avoid. In the past 6 months on the Spirit Stream battlefield, although I have reached the 5th order, compared to this vast battlefield, what is it? How can I, Lu Yi, with my small body bear the weight of the game between the two camps? Why should they put me at the center of this battle? But since I am already involved in this dispute, I can't stay out of it. I also just found out that many people were secretly helping me, and many people died because of it. I don't want to say that their deaths have nothing to do with me. Whether it was because of the orders of the sect or because of my friendship with the Blue Blood sect, they were all helping me. I will remember this kindness in my heart. Lan Yudi looked at him quietly. Originally, she was quite resentful about the task given by her sect. After all, they didn't know Lu Yi before, but because of her sect master's order to protect him, 2 people died. There were also those who died in the wilderness. How pitiful and sad it was. But now, it seemed that the most pitiful and sad was this young boy in front of her. Yes, with only a trivial 5th order cultivation, he had become the center of the game between the 2 camps. So many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators wanted to take his life, and many of them were masters from the sect's core. How much pressure did he have to bear? This was not the situation he wanted, but it had become a vortex of struggle. If it were her, she would have been unable to bear it long ago. So, what do you want to say? So, Lu Yi smiled at her. I want to live. I don't care what grudges the previous generation had, and I don't care why my sect is being targeted like this. Since there are so many people secretly helping me and dying because of me, then I want to live. You're right, I can't let those people die in vain. My cultivation is still low, so I don't have the qualifications to talk about revenge, but as long as I live, I will have the opportunity. Those people from Myriad Demon Ridge had better kill me before I return to the Blue Blood sect, otherwise, one day, I will make all the forces from Myriad Demon Ridge who targeted me pay the price. Lan Yudai looked at him foolishly. Listening to his childish and irrational words, she finally blurted out, I'm afraid you're crazy. In the end, he was still a young man. Occasionally, he would say some hot-blooded and arrogant words. After interacting with Lu Yi for the past few days, Lan Yudi had thought that he was an introverted person. But now, she discovered that she was wrong. I won't leave you behind. Lu Ye's next words made Lan Yudai vomit blood. If I leave, I'm afraid you won't live long. Rest well tonight and we'll set off tomorrow morning. Lan Yudai looked at him angrily, but Lu Yi looked back at her calmly. After a while, Lan Yudai looked away, knowing that she couldn't persuade him. Suddenly, her face tightened. Did you change my clothes? Only now did she realize that her clothes had been changed. She was wearing a set of men's clothes, and judging from his body shape, it should belong to the young man in front of her. Moreover, her wounds had been properly treated. She didn't know what kind of medicine had been applied, but she still felt a numbing sensation. Lan Yudai's face instantly turned red. You saw everything? I said it wasn't me. Lu Yi defended himself. Lan Yudai's face became even redder. If it wasn't you, then did I change my clothes? Hoopa looked up at her, a little unhappy. Chapter 151. Before dawn, the two set out again. Lu Yi didn't know what method Lan Yudai used, but she seemed to have the ability to detect the nearby environment. Under her guidance, the two were able to avoid many potential dangers. This was because Lu Yi often felt the world energy fluctuations of cultivators fighting nearby, and those world energy fluctuations were obviously very powerful. Lu Yi understood that the cultivators from the inner circle had already rushed over and were confronting each other. One day later, under the guidance of Lan Yudai, Lu Yi entered a mountain valley. Lan Yudai, who was sitting in front of Lu Yi, fiddled with her battlefield imprint. Soon, a dozen people rushed over from a direction. This group seemed to have experienced many battles as many of them were injured. They're on the same side. Don't worry, Lan Yudai quickly said when she noticed Lu Ye's nervousness. The group of people rushed over, but before they could get close, Lan Yudi raised her hand and shouted, Are you the senior brothers from the Big Dipper sect? The bearded man in the lead also showed his battlefield imprint to Lan Yudai and responded, yes. Soon, the dozen people rushed over under the bearded man's lead. Lu Yi looked at this group. 2 were 7th order, 3 were 6th order, and the rest were 4th order or 5th order. Their overall strength was quite good. Lan Yudai jumped off the tiger's back and looked up at Lu Yi with an apologetic expression. I can only accompany you up to here. You'll have to walk the rest of the way by yourself. There will be others looking for you. A day ago, she had asked Lu Yi to leave her behind, but Lu Yi didn't agree. In desperation, she could only contact the nearby Union sect, which led to the current situation. Lu Yi didn't want to leave her behind because he was afraid that she would encounter an accident. Since the previous battle, Lan Yudai had become a little weak. If she encountered a strong enemy alone, she wouldn't be able to resist. Hearing her words, Lu Yi understood her plan and nodded. Understood. You're Lu Yi? The bearded man looked at Lu Yi on the tiger's back. Lu Yi nodded and met the dozen gazes opposite him. The bearded man grinned and said, our cultivation is not high, so we can't be of much help. However, the people of the Myriad Demon's Ridge can't bully us. We'll block the pursuers for you. You can go and live. The banner of the Jade Blood sect should not fall. Lu Yi looked at this group of people with a complicated expression. He had never seen them before and had never interacted with them. However, at this moment, they had all come for him. They were like this, the people of Mount Purple Cloud were like this, and the people who were fighting with the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge in unknown places were also like this. Lu Yi's thoughts churned. He suddenly realized that even though he was just a little 5th order cultivator and had always been cultivating alone, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood the Blue Blood sect and the colossal Grand Heaven Alliance. No matter what kind of grudges the previous generation had, no matter why they wanted to put the vortex of conflict on themselves, there would always be many people who died because of it. The Jade Blood sect's Lu Yi was not only his name, but also his symbol. This symbol was enough for a group of people like the bearded man to entrust their lives to him after a few simple words. Live, I must live. There had never been a moment when his will to live was so strong. Lu Yi sat on the tiger's back and cupped his fists solemnly to the people below. If I don't die, I will definitely drink and chat with my senior brothers. Everyone returned the salute, and the bearded man grinned. Then we will wait for you. Lu Yi turned around and flew away with Hoopa. Soon, the sound of fighting could be heard behind him. Climbing up a nearby mountain, Lu Yi looked back and saw that the dozen people from Big Dipper sect were besieged by many cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge who were chasing after them. Many cultivators who heard the commotion gathered from all directions. In just a short moment, there was a chaotic battle of more than 50 to 60 people, and the number was still increasing. However, there were obviously more people from Myriad Devil Ridge. They surrounded the people from Grand Heaven Alliance in the middle, and the power of their spells was constantly released. Someone was knocked to the ground and dragged his seriously injured body towards the enemy. Before he died, he cut down a cultivator from Myriad Devil Ridge. Someone roared and rushed into the enemy group. He used some unknown method and exploded, making the enemy dizzy. He saw that the bearded man had been slashed several times, and blood splattered everywhere, but he did not retreat. He saw Lan Yudi dancing among the enemy group again, and her twin sabers turned into saber light that filled the sky. Hoopa paced restlessly. Lu Yi suppressed his urge to rush over and took a deep breath. He roared to the sky, Lu Yi of Jade Blood sect is here. Lu Yi is here. Here. This earth-shaking roar reverberated in the valley continuously. It was accompanied by Hoopo's roar. Many cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge who were rushing to the battlefield turned their heads and looked over, and they saw the figure of a young man riding a huge snow-white tiger on top of the mountain. Under the setting sun, the young man's figure was particularly eye-catching. Lu Yi is over there. Someone shouted. Go and kill him. Some cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge withdrew from the battle and rushed toward Lu Yi. Even more people who had not joined the battle in time hurried over. Even some nearby cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge heard the roar and turned around. Below the mountain valley, the pressure on Lan Yudi and the others immediately decreased. She retreated to her camp, her body covered in sticky blood. She looked in Lu Ye's direction and gritted her teeth. Bastard. The bearded man laughed. I suddenly feel that even if I die here, it will be worth it. By the time the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators climbed up the mountain, Lu Yi had already run away. He was not stupid. How could he wait for death in place? He shouted mainly to reduce the pressure on Lan Yudi and the others. Otherwise, under such a siege, Lan Yudi and the others would be doomed. He didn't know how effective his actions were. Riding on Hu Po's back, Yang Kai looked back and saw figures constantly rising and falling in the sky. They were all 7th Order cultivators who had the ability to glide for a short period of time. He was relieved. With so many 7th Order cultivators running over, Lan Yudi and the others should not be in too much danger. It was not realistic for the pursuers to catch up to Lu Yi just by gliding. Compared to the second time he was chased by Dong Shai, Hu Po's speed had increased a bit. The bloodlines on his scales were of great help to his body tempering. Therefore, Lu Yi wasn't worried about being caught by these people at all. What he was afraid of were the experts who came out of the core circle. Those fellows were all capable of flight. However, what he feared would happen. Not long after he started running, Lu Yi felt a sharp aura approaching him at an extremely fast speed. He hurriedly looked back and saw a streak of light flying over from behind. Judging from the speed of that person, it was most likely a 9th Order cultivator. Hoopa run, Lu Yi hurriedly urged. Hoopa used all his strength, but he still could not get rid of the other party. The distance between them was constantly closing. At the same time, a familiar voice sounded, "Boy, you're dead." Hanjiu? Lu Yi immediately recognized the voice. It was Tai Luo Sek's Hanjiu. It was not surprising. Xie Jin had sent him a message before, indicating that the news had already reached Blue Feather Mountain. If Blue Feather Mountain could get the news, Tai Luo Sect could too. During the Dragon Spring Festival, Tai Luo Sect had suffered many casualties because of Lu Yi. In the Central Peak Hall, Hanjiu did not hide her hostility and murderous intent towards Lu Yi. After the Dragon Spring body tempering, Tang Wu of Blue Feather Mountain personally sent Lu Yi to Peaceful E-City to prevent Hanjiu from killing him. As a result, even if Hanjiu wanted to kill him, she would not know where to find him. As a 9th Order cultivator, she would not keep an eye on Lu Yi all the time. However, when all kinds of news about Lu Yi spread uncontrollably, Hanjiu immediately realized that her opportunity had come. After the Dragon Spring Festival's defeat, she was scolded by the old guys in her sect. Her hatred for Lu Yi deepened. After learning that this guy was a disciple of Blue Blood Sect, she immediately set off from Tai Luo Sect's station. Just as she was about to arrive, she heard Lu Yi shout, "Blue Blood Sect's Lu Yi is here." This was really like someone giving her a pillow when she was sleepy. She immediately chased after him. In midair, Hanjiu looked down at the fleeing figure below with a smile on her face. She raised her jade white hand and pinched a feather-like thing between her fingers. Judging from the light on the feather, it was a spirit artifact. She was about to throw this spirit artifact out when a loud explosion suddenly came from a mountain below. Then, a figure shot up into the sky like an arrow and hit her flying spirit artifact. Hanjiu's face changed and she quickly dodged, but she was still knocked down by the powerful impact. A figure surrounded by heat waves appeared diagonally above her. That person punched out. "Get down." The powerful attack came and Hanjiu was caught off guard. She could not dodge it and hurriedly pushed her spirit energy barrier to block the blow, but her body was still knocked down diagonally by the punch. With a bang, she hit the ground and got up with a dirty face. She screamed like a madwoman, "Tang Wu, this old lady will never forgive you. You speak as if we were friends in the past." Tang Wu sneered and rushed towards Hanjiu with his fist raised. "Enough nonsense, eat my fist first." One was a body cultivator and the other was a Dharma cultivator. Both of them were 9th Order cultivators and were old rivals. They immediately fought fiercely. However, Tang Wu was stronger than Hanjiu to begin with. Coupled with the fact that he had the upper hand, Hanjiu was soon beaten into a daze. Her hair was disheveled, and she cried out, "Green Feather Mountain and the Blue Blood Sect have no relationship." Tang Wu snorted coldly, This old man is not here for the blue blood sect. Han Jiyu immediately understood that this meat barbarian was not here for the blue blood sect, but for her. In this game between the two camps, some were here because of the friendship between the previous generation and the blue blood sect, some were here because of personal grievances, and some were here to hone themselves. Mobile users, please browse. Chapter 152. While Tang Wu and Han Jiyu, this pair of old enemies, were fighting, the hidden 8th Order and 9th Order cultivators appeared one after another. Lu Yi didn't know when so many masters had been hiding around him. Every time an 8th or 9th Order cultivator from Myriad Demon Ridge jumped out, there would always be a cultivator from Grand Heaven Alliance to fight him. As he moved forward, one battle after another appeared behind him. In these battles, the cultivators of the two factions fought back and forth, and they were locked in a fierce battle. These people had all rushed over from the inner circle. They might have been old rivals or had never met before, but because of their opposing camps and different standpoints, they naturally regarded each other as enemies. This was a feast for the strong. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, although the two camps were naturally opposed and constantly attacked each other, large and small battles would erupt every day. Ever since that behemoth had fallen, it had been many years since such a chaotic battle had erupted that swept over the entire battlefield. The three words Blue Blood Sect deeply stimulated the nerves of the older generation of Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. They couldn't come to the Spirit Stream battlefield at will, so they had all given their disciples a death order. No matter what, that Blue Blood Sect disciple named Lu Yi had to die. No matter what, the Blue Blood Sect had to be eliminated in 2 months. Coupled with the generous rewards offered by the various sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge, countless cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge were rushing towards Lu Yi. As long as they could kill Lu Yi, they would have an endless supply of cultivation resources. After the battle ended, Lu Yi stood in the messy battlefield, panting heavily. Blood dripped from the long saber in his hand. He stuffed a healing pill into his mouth, and with Yi's help, he simply bandaged his wounds. Then he flipped onto the tiger's back and continued forward. The masters who rushed over from the inner circle were restraining each other, so Lu Yi didn't encounter any powerful enemies along the way. This was his luck, and also the efforts of the entire Grand Heaven Alliance. But without Lan Yudai's methods, he would inevitably encounter some Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, and some battles would be inevitable. If the enemy was a 7th Order cultivator, he would escape on Hupo. If there weren't a 7th Order cultivator, he would charge forward and kill them. Lu Yi could no longer remember how many waves of Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators he had killed. Those fellows' cultivation bases were uneven, and there were all sorts of monsters among them. He and Hupo were already very tired, but they didn't dare to stop and rest because their current whereabouts had been completely exposed. Once they stopped, it was possible that they would be surrounded, and at that time, it would be impossible for them to escape. He didn't know if he could survive, but he wouldn't give up so easily. The impurities in his spiritual power were very obvious and were about to affect his combat effectiveness. However, if he wanted to recover quickly, he had to take a spirit pill. He had no other choice. Qiao Mountain that stretched for thousands of miles in the Force province of the world of the 9 provinces was originally the territory of a huge monster. It was the place where the most eye-catching flag of the Haotian Alliance stood. However, ever since that incident happened a few decades ago, the giant organization gradually declined. Today, the Haotian Alliance, which was once the pride and symbol of the Haotian Alliance, had been reduced to a 9th-rank clan. There was a risk that the Haotian Alliance would be eliminated at any time. No one had cleaned the place for decades. The buildings on the Spirit Peaks were dilapidated, and the bustling and prosperous days of the past had long turned into dead silence. The entire Qiao Mountain gave people the feeling that it was an old man with one foot in the grave that could decay at any time. Only the main hall on the central peak was intact. In front of the main hall, the flag of the Jade Blood Sect was fluttering. It was a blood-red flag that was dyed red by the blood of the Jade Blood Sect's disciples over the years. The flag was embroidered with a blazing golden flame, as if it wanted to burn all the demons and monsters in the world. A few decades ago, the myriad Devil Ridge retreated wherever this flag with a red background fluttered. However, today, who among the younger generation still recognize this flag? Even for those cultivators who were slightly older, who would still remember this flag. This was the sorrow of the era. In the main hall, the Jade Blood Sect's sect master, Tangving, sat on a chair with a weary expression. Compared to half a year ago, the sect master seemed to have aged by a few decades. In front of him, a petite woman knelt and kowtowed, begging, "Sect master, please save junior brother." The sect master said bitterly, "Whether he lives or dies depends on his own fortune. This old man is powerless." As a Divine Sea Realm cultivator, he couldn't even enter the Spirit Stream battlefield. Even if he knew that Lu Yi was in a critical situation, he couldn't help much. Junior brother doesn't know anything. He only encountered this ordeal because he joined the Jade Blood Sect. It was the sect master who took him in. If I don't save him, it would be too unfair to him. The sect master smiled bitterly. How could this old man not know? But in this situation, how do you expect this old man to intervene? The woman said, "I've inquired about junior brother's current location. It's not far from the Azure Sea Mountains encampment." Back then, when the Azure Sea Mountain was in danger of being destroyed, it was my Jade Blood Sect that helped them resolve the crisis. If the sect master can restore the alliance contract with the Azure Sea Mountain, then junior brother only needs to rush to the Azure Sea Mountains encampment and borrow the Tianji pillar there to return to the 9 provinces. This way, he will be able to escape. When the Jade Blood Sect was at its peak, it had an alliance contract with many sects in the 9 provinces. However, after that incident, many sects had cut off contact with the Jade Blood Sect. In the past few decades, the sect master had also rescinded all the alliance contracts and completely cut off contact with other sections. If 2 sects wanted to establish an alliance contract, the sect masters of the 2 sects would need to use the sect master's seal as the foundation and invite the Tianji pillar to bear witness. This way, they could become an alliance and help each other in times of need. With an alliance contract, the disciples of the 2 sects could borrow the Tianji pillar of the other sect to do all kinds of things. For example, they could spend a certain amount of contribution points to teleport between the 2 sections. The large and small sects in the 9 provinces had very close relationships with each other. The alliance contracts were what maintained this relationship. The large sects in the core region had an alliance contract with many small and medium-sized sections. This was because when their disciples' cultivation was not high, they would need to go to the outer and inner regions of the battlefield to train. Naturally, it was more convenient to stay in the Alliance's encampment. The Azure Sea Mountain that the woman spoke of was a 7th-rank force. It was also a force in the War Province. It had once been on good terms with the Jade Blood Sect, and it could even be said that the Azure Sea Mountain's rise was due to the Jade Blood Sect's support. When the Jade Blood Sect was at its peak, the Azure Sea Mountain was a 9th-rank force that had just been established. There were only a few Cloud River tier cultivators in the sect, but now, there were even a few true Lake tier cultivators in the Azure Sea Mountain. This time, there was even hope for them to reach the 6th rank. As long as the Jade Blood Sect could establish an alliance contract with the Azure Sea Mountain, then Lu Yi would be able to head to the encampment of the Azure Sea Mountain at the Spirit Stream battlefield. As long as he entered the encampment, he would be able to borrow the Tianji pillar there to return to the War Province. At that time, the crisis would naturally be resolved. It could be said that this was the only way for Lu Yi to escape, because he was currently too far away from the encampment of the Jade Blood Sect. On the way, even if he had the help of many cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance, it would be impossible for him to reach the encampment safely. If we do this, the Azure Sea Mountain will definitely become the target of public criticism. If something happens to the Azure Sea Mountain, then wouldn't the Jade Blood Sect be implicated? How would that be fair to the Azure Sea Mountain? How could the sect master not have thought of the method that the woman spoke of? But if they really did this once the news spread? No, the news would definitely spread. At that time, the encampment of the Azure Sea Mountain would become the focus of the battle between the 2 great camps. Even if it was a 7th-rank sect, it would still be in danger of being destroyed. It was precisely because of this consideration that the sect master couldn't do this. His own disciples were people, but the disciples of other sects were also people. The woman was still kneeling on the ground, her tone sorrowful. The agreement to form an alliance with the Azure Sea Mountain will indeed put them in danger, but if we leave them alone, Junior Brother will undoubtedly die. How can there be such a thing as fairness in this world? Junior Brother, a fifth-order cultivator, has become a chess piece in the battle between two great camps. This is the legacy of the previous generation, so why should Junior Brother bear the responsibility? How can he bear the responsibility? Originally, it was fine if the sect was gone, and I had already accepted this outcome over the past few decades. However, you suddenly took in a little Junior Brother. When I heard this news, I was very happy because after so many years, this day has finally come. Disciple has never seen him and doesn't know what kind of person he is, but since he was accepted by you, then he is my Junior Brother. Disciple will not allow him to die in front of me. As she spoke, she slowly straightened up, a strange light flashing in her eyes. The sect master was shocked. Looking at the female disciple in front of him, he suddenly had a bad feeling. Old man, you accepted him. If you don't want to save him, then I will. She suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person as she stepped out, saying as she walked, when Junior Brother and I die together, you will be alone for the rest of your life. In the future, there will be no one to send you off. Shui Yuan. The sect master was a little flustered because he knew what was going to happen next. This disciple of his was a ninth-order true Lake Realm cultivator, and she was going to force her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield. True Lake Realm cultivators naturally couldn't appear in the Spirit Stream battlefield. If they wanted to force their way in, not only would they have to pay a large amount of merit points, even if they did, their cultivation would be greatly suppressed. At most, they would only be able to use Spirit Stream realm techniques. True Lake Realm cultivators could force their way into the Spirit Stream battlefield, but at the sect master's level, there was no way. Therefore, even if those powerful cultivators could force their way into the Spirit Stream battlefield, most people wouldn't choose to do so. If they were careless and were killed by those juniors, wouldn't that be worth it? The woman called Shui Yuan was obviously going to throw caution to the wind. In a flash, the sect master stood in front of Shui Yuan and said in a deep voice, "You can't go." Shui Yuan stared at him. Her small body had great determination, and the strange light in her eyes became stronger as she said angrily, "I want to go. Hurry up and get out of the way with your old arms and legs. It won't look good if I throw you to the ground." The sect master was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. "You disrespectful traitor. I should have kicked you out long ago. Just like how you kicked those junior brothers out of the door?" The atmosphere suddenly turned silent, and the sect master's expression seemed to have aged a few decades. After a while, the sect master sighed, "Fine, I'll throw away this old face and make a trip to Azure Cliff Mountain." Chapter 153. Half a day later, at the main peak of Azure Sea Mountain, the bell rang 9 times and the mountain gate opened. Led by Azure Sea Mountain sect master, Meng Dan Cheng, a group of Azure Sea Mountain elders, protectors, and deacons stood on both sides, waiting respectfully. When the sect master appeared with the woman called Shui Yuan, everyone saluted. Without beating around the bush, Meng Dan Cheng went straight to the point, "Old Tang, everything is ready. Please come in." The sect master nodded with a complicated expression, "Thank you for your hard work." Meng Dan Cheng shook his head with a smile. "Azure Sea Mountain has been waiting for this day." After a short while, the mysteries of the heavens surged. Under the witness of the mysteries of the heavens, the headmasters of the two great sects entered into an alliance. Even though Mount Azure Cliff had done everything in its power to suppress this news, under the watchful eyes of some people, this news still uncontrollably spread outwards. In a hidden place in the Spirit Stream battlefield, Lu Yi sat cross-legged and took a pill to recover. Hupa lay beside him, his blood-covered belly rising and falling rapidly. Although he was tired, he was still eating beast meat in big mouthfuls, because he knew that only when he was full would he have the strength to escape. Without resting for too long, Lu Yi rode Hupo on the road again. However, They hadn't walked far when a streak of light hovering in midair suddenly flew down. Before it even got close, it took the initiative to reveal its battlefield imprint to Lu Yi. It was a cultivator from the Grand Heaven Alliance. "Come up." That person stopped his flying spirit artifact in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi hesitated. Since he separated from Lan Yudai, he had been supported by several cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to reach here with his current cultivation. However, the cultivators who had come to pick him up could not accompany him for too long. Along the way, they would be obstructed and intercepted by the myriad Devil Ridge. Every time this happened, those cultivators would have to go meet the enemy, and Lu Yi would once again travel alone. Previously, a 9th Order cultivator had used a flight-type spirit artifact to trip Lu Yi. It had to be said that the spirit artifact was very fast, but it didn't take long for it to be discovered by the people of Myriad Demon Ridge and was almost shot down. If they really fell from that height, that person wouldn't die, but Lu Yi and Hoopa definitely wouldn't. So, when he heard that someone wanted him to go up, Lu Yi was a little traumatized. Using a flying spirit artifact was indeed fast, but it was also easy to be targeted. But he didn't have any other choice, so he could only brace himself and step onto the flying spirit artifact with Hoopa. That person formed a hand seal and shouted, "Rise." The small boat-like flying spirit tool rose into the air. This person was smart and didn't fly too high. This way, even if he was hit, his life wouldn't be in danger. While remaining vigilant of his surroundings, he hurriedly said to Lu Yi, "Blue Blood Sect has already signed an alliance agreement with Azure Sea Mountain, so you don't need to head to Blue Blood Sect's encampment right now. As long as you can rush to Azure Sea Mountain's encampment, you will be safe." Songmin Mountain? Songmin Mountain? Lu Yi hurriedly took out a map to examine it. He didn't know what an alliance contract was, but from the information revealed by the other party, it was likely the key to his escape. Very soon he found the location of Songmin Mountain's encampment. It was a rank 7 sect, located at the border between the outer circle and the inner circle. Although it wasn't too far from here, it definitely wasn't close either. However, it was much closer than going to the Blue Blood Sect station. He immediately understood that this should be the result of the sect master's efforts. Otherwise, there was no reason for the Blue Blood Sect to sign an alliance agreement with Azure Sea Mountain at such a crucial time. Several Myriad Devil Ridge forces near Azure Sea Mountain have already declared war on Azure Sea Mountain. Remember, the closer you get to Azure Sea Mountain, the more dangerous it is. Before you reach Azure Sea Mountain, you must not be careless. Understood? Lu Yi nodded heavily and turned his head to look back. There were already Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who had discovered his tracks and were chasing after him. However, there were also people from Grand Heaven Alliance blocking his path. "You can't escape. Hurry in the direction of Azure Sea Mountain. There will be people ahead to receive you." As the person spoke, he pressed down on the flying light. After Lu Yi and Hoopa jumped down, he immediately turned around and met the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who were chasing after him. In an instant, the two flying lights collided and spiritual energy buzzed. Lu Yi didn't turn his head to look. In a battle between cultivators of this level, he couldn't help at all. He rode on Hoopa's back and rushed towards Azure Sea Mountain at full speed. The Spirit Stream battlefield became even more lively. The news of the alliance agreement between the Blue Blood Sect and Azure Sea Mountain had already spread, and the reason for this was self-evident. As a result, Azure Sea Mountain had also become the center of the battle between the two camps. Countless cultivators from both camps were gathering in this direction from all directions, and the area within a 1,000-kilometer radius of Azure Sea Mountain had already become a complete mess. Although Azure Sea Mountain had already called back all of its disciples, they still couldn't fight back against the successive declarations of war from the nearby sections. Currently, many disciples of Azure Sea Mountain had no choice but to hole up in their sect's defensive formation. Even so, they couldn't be at peace. Many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators gathered outside Azure Sea Mountain and constantly attacked the formation. They looked like they wanted to take over Azure Sea Mountain's base. After receiving the news, many cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance also began to gather at Azure Sea Mountain's base. They had to protect Azure Sea Mountain no matter what. Once Azure Sea Mountain's base was breached, they would completely lose the battle between the factions. In just a short day, the area around Azure Sea Mountain had turned into a mincemeat. Countless cultivators had died here. News that made Grand Heaven Alliance feel even more despair came. Many cultivators from the Sacred Flame sect had rushed over. They gathered a large number of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators and set up layers of defenses between Lu Yi and Azure Sea Mountain's base. Although the Sacred Flame sect was only a 4th-rank sect, it had been a 1st-rank sect a few decades ago. The reason why it had fallen in rank was all thanks to the Jade Blood sect. In that era, it was not only the Sacred Flame sect that had fallen in rank due to the Jade Blood sect. It was the same for 100 Refinements Valley and several other sects that Feng Yuechan had blocked at the gate of their base. Their enmity with the Blue Blood sect was far greater than the other sections. In the era when the Blue Blood sect was glorious and powerful, they hid in the shadows and trembled, not daring to show their faces. However, after a few decades, the Blue Blood sect had completely declined. As long as they killed Lu Yi, the Blue Blood sect would be removed from the next sect ranking assessment. It could be said that the sects that had suffered greatly at the hands of the Blue Blood sect had been waiting for this day to come. How could they allow Lu Yi to enter Azure Sea Mountain's base so easily? This was also the reason why the sect master was unwilling to easily sign an alliance contract with Azure Sea Mountain. He knew that this would definitely push Azure Sea Mountain into the heart of the struggle. Even though Azure Sea Mountain was now a 7th-rank sect, they might not be able to escape unscathed from the confrontation between the two factions. 9 states, Azure Sea Mountain's main hall. In front of the Pillar of Heaven's Secrets, Shui Yuan raised her hand and pressed it. Meng Danqing's expression was solemn. "Senior sister, you must be careful." Shui Yuan smiled. "We can't just rely on you for the Blue Blood sect's matters." The sect master stood to the side and also warned in a serious voice. "If the matter is impossible, don't try to be brave." Shui Yuan respectfully responded and activated the battlefield imprint. In the next moment, her figure blurred and quickly disappeared. Spirit Stream Battlefield, Azure Sea Mountain's base. Layers of ripples continuously appeared on the defensive array. Many cultivators of Azure Sea Mountain were running around in panic. Although they were trying their best to maintain the array, there were too many cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge who had come to attack the base this time. There was no lack of experts who had come from the core region. Even though the guardian of this place had already pushed the defensive array's power to the limit, the strength of the array was still rapidly weakening. "How much longer can it last?" the guardian asked in a serious voice. "Based on the current situation, the array will be broken in less than 4 hours, the deputy replied. 4 hours? The guardian snorted. "This is not good. Pass down the order. Everyone is to prepare for a battle to the death." The deputy's expression changed. "Senior brother, in this situation, shouldn't they give up on the base and return to the 9 states before the array was broken? If they fought a battle to the death here, who knew how many of their fellow sect members would die here? If things went wrong, Azure Sea Mountain would be wiped out." The guardian said indifferently, "This is an order from the sect master himself. I don't care what relationship the previous generation has with the Jade Blood sect, but since it is an order from the sect master, we must obey. You will personally guard the divine pillar. If anyone dares to run away, kill them without mercy." The deputy clenched his teeth. "Yes." However, before the deputy could turn around and head to the divine pillar, a strange movement suddenly came from the defensive array. The guardian frowned. "Who opened the array?" The movement just now was clearly caused when the array was opened. The two of them flashed out of the main hall together. When they looked up, the scene that they saw stunned them. They saw a black stream of light shuttling back and forth outside the array. As the black stream of light shuttled back and forth, the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge screamed and fell from the sky. The black stream of light was like a wind of death. Wherever it blew, the aura of death would spread. Even those experts from the core region who had cultivated heaven-grade cultivation techniques could not block the killing of this black stream of light. "Who is this?" The guardian was stunned. His sect did not have such a ferocious person. The deputy was also shocked. He wondered if it was the Spirit Stream sect's top disciple called Feng Yuechan. However, Feng Yuechan was a Dharma cultivator and did not match this person. In a short period of time, more than 10 cultivators from Myriad Devil Ridge had been killed. These people were all experts from the core region who had rushed over. In an instant, the pressure on the Azure Sea Mountain's defensive array was greatly reduced. The faint purple power of lightning grew near the black stream of light. The Guardian immediately understood. Which senior forced his way in? Only cultivators at the Spirit Stream realm could safely enter the Spirit Stream battlefield. Although cultivators above the Spirit Stream realm could pay a huge price to force their way in, their strength would be suppressed to the Spirit Stream realm. They could only use Spirit Stream realm techniques. In addition, if such a person killed someone on the Spirit Stream battlefield, the omnipresent divine pillar would punish them. The faint purple power of lightning was the symbol of this punishment. The more people killed, the stronger the power of lightning. Under this accumulation, there would eventually be a moment when the intruder would not be able to hold on and die under the bombardment of the purple lightning. Chapter 154. Following the Black Streak of Light's massacre, the pressure on Tsangmin Mountain's side was greatly reduced. The Guardian of Tsangmin Mountain immediately saw an opportunity and shouted, "Open the formation, kill the enemy." They couldn't just take a beating and not fight back. Now was the best time to counterattack. The formation opened and the cultivators of Tsangmin Mountain who were full of resentment charged out. At the same time, the cultivators of Grand Heaven Alliance who were watching the situation nearby also swarmed over. With a pincer attack, they only took half a day to beat back the cultivators of Myriad Devil Ridge who came to attack Tsangmin Mountain's encampment. After receiving support from Tsangmin Mountain, the cultivators of Grand Heaven Alliance all entered Tsangmin Mountain's encampment. The defensive formation was reactivated and the encampment's defensive strength increased greatly. This way, if Myriad Devil Ridge came to attack again, Tsangmin Mountain would have the power to resist. Not long after the battle began, the black stream of light, wrapped in the purple lightning energy, quickly disappeared into the distance. Until now, the two guardians of Tsangmin Mountain still didn't know who had come. After a series of inquiries, they finally received an answer. "It's actually her?" The guardian had a dumbfounded expression. "But isn't she a medical cultivator?" He remembered that when he was seriously injured a few years ago, the sect master brought him to Jade Blood Sect in a hurry to find this person to treat his injuries. This martial ant's healing methods were extremely impressive. She only needed 3 days to recover from that kind of injury. It was said that in the entire cultivation world of the War Province, her medical skills could be ranked among the top. She had saved countless people with her medical skills that could bring the dead back to life. He was truly a bit confused. Within the black streak of light, purple lightning constantly flickered beside the lithe figure, turning into countless tiny lightning whips that whipped her body. Although she had already tried her best to control the number of people she killed, the punishment from heaven was no joke. The purple lightning was extremely destructive and corrosive. Ordinary cultivators would be in so much pain that they wished they were dead if they came into contact with it. However, at this moment, she was wrapped in lightning as if nothing had happened. There wasn't the slightest bit of pain on her face. She looked forward and flew with all her strength. She had to be faster, faster. An unknown distance in front of her, Lu Yi was riding on Hu Pe and fleeing in a sorry state. Behind her, a figure soared into the air and chased after her. While in the air, this person pointed a finger in Lu Ye's direction. The other party's demeanor was relaxed, as if he was crushing an ant. A huge finger of spiritual energy appeared above Lu Ye's head and quickly pressed down. He was the ant being crushed. Hu Pe moved left and right, but he was still unable to avoid the other party's attack range. When the spirit energy finger pressed down, Lu Yi roared and activated the defensive spirit tattoo, placing it above his head. Even though he kept channeling his spirit energy to maintain this defensive spiritual rune, he still couldn't withstand the other party's attack. With a cracking sound, the defensive rune shattered. Lu Yi instantly felt as if he was being pressed down by a mountain. Beneath him, Hooper roared and fell to his knees with a plop. Unable to breathe, Lu Ye's chest felt heavy. Just as Lu Yi thought that he was going to die, he suddenly heard the clanging of a sword, followed by a furious roar. North Mystic Sword Sex Lunatic Jian? The pressure on his head immediately disappeared. Lu Yi turned his head and saw that a man in green had appeared beside him. He couldn't see the man's face clearly because his back was facing Lu Yi and he was holding a long sword. Is the North Mystic Sword Sect also going to interfere? The Wanma Ridge cultivator who was chasing after Lu Yi shouted angrily. His voice clearly contained some fear. Let's go. The man in green was clearly not a talkative person. He said softly to Lu Yi. Thank you, senior brother. Lu Yi thanked him and hurriedly fled. If he remembered correctly, the North Mystic Sword Sect was one of the top 10 first-grade sects in the War Province. Yu Xiaodai had told him about this before. He didn't run far before he heard the sounds of an intense battle behind him. The sound of swords whistling through the air was endless. Lu Ye's investigation was very thorough. He was getting closer and closer to the Tsangming Mountains encampment. However, the further he went, the greater the resistance he encountered. Lu Yi didn't know if he could successfully reach the Tsangming Mountains encampment, but he had no other choice. Even if there was a mountain of blades and a sea of flames in front of him, he could only brace himself and charge forward. Fortunately, Grand Heaven Alliance was very strong. Every time a master appeared that Lu Yi couldn't resist, there would always be someone from Grand Heaven Alliance to take over and resist. Less than half a day later, Lu Yi was forced to stop at the top of a mountain. This mountain was very strange, as if someone had cut it in half from the middle. The cut was very smooth, and the top of the mountain was barren. There was no vegetation, and all the trees and flowers only grew to the bottom of the mountain. It was as if there was an invisible boundary there, sealing off all life. On the map, this place was marked as the Golden Peak. This was a mountain with a name. The number of such mountains in the wilderness was incalculable. Generally, they didn't have a special name. At most, they would be marked with the name of an entire mountain range. For example, Blue Cloud Mountain, where Lu Yi first arrived, actually had many peaks. Even the 100 Peaks mountain he passed by was like this. In comparison, this extremely special mountain seemed a little unusual. It was rumored that the terrain here was created by a peerless master who wielded a saber, but the strongest cultivators in the entire Spirit Stream battlefield were those who cultivated 9th Order Heaven-grade secret arts. Even if these people were 10 times stronger, it would still be impossible for them to create such a spectacular scenery. How the Golden Peak was formed had always been a mystery. At this moment, more than a dozen cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance surrounded Lu Yi in the middle, while myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators gathered from all directions. They had reached a dead end and there was no way to escape. Although the cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance weren't weak, they were outnumbered. After the myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators surrounded this place, they weren't in a hurry to attack. Instead, they were constantly sending out messages. As the message spread, the news that Lu Yi of the Blue Blood sect was trapped in the Golden Peak spread. Cultivators from the two camps nearby rushed over. Halfway there, a battle broke out. Everyone, we can't wait any longer. If we wait any longer, I'm afraid no one will be able to escape, a burly body cultivator shouted. Then let's kill our way out. Someone echoed. It's not difficult to just kill our way out, but I'm afraid it won't be possible to protect this little friend from the Blue Blood sect. Then what should we do? Wait for death here? We can't just wait for death. Before we die, we must drag a few people with us. Boy, are you afraid of death? Someone asked Lu Yi. The person who asked the question was at a loss for words. He didn't know how to respond to Lu Yi. But I don't want to wait for death here. Lu Yi slowly drew his saber. Lu Yi is very grateful for the protection of all my senior brothers today. Myriad Demon's Ridge is targeting me. Senior brothers, please break out. I will try my best to keep up. If I can't, please don't worry about my life or death. The burly body cultivator slapped the back of Lu Ye's head and said, You're just a 5th order cultivator. What are you trying to do? Before we die, it's not your turn to die. He took a deep breath, and his originally tall and sturdy body suddenly expanded by a size. His muscles were clearly defined, and his chi and blood were boiling. Heat waves rolled around him, and 2 streams of hot air came out of his nostrils. "We're about to break out of the encirclement, follow closely." Someone exhorted Lu Yi, "Don't die. If you die, Myriad Demons Ridge will win this battle. If that happens, I won't be able to die in peace." This dispute had continued to this day. Many Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were too lazy to care about the grievances of the previous generation. In their minds, they simply couldn't let Myriad Demons Ridge win. As for the price they had to pay, how many people died on the Spirit Stream battlefield every day? Even without this conflict, Grand Heaven Alliance and Myriad Demons Ridge would still be fighting each other every day. Kill. With a roar, everyone broke out in a direction under the lead of the body cultivator. In that direction, many Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators immediately retreated. At the same time, a series of spell techniques were launched from that direction. The burly body cultivator took the spell techniques head-on and charged forward like a mad bull. Many Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators behind him used various methods to break out of the encirclement. However, they didn't succeed in breaking out this time because they didn't only have to face the pressure from the front, but also from other directions. After a while, the group of people who had rushed out more than 100 feet were suppressed again. Almost all of them were injured, but Lu Yi, who was surrounded in the middle, was unharmed. Again, the body cultivator roared and broke out in another direction. In that direction, a group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators was charging over. As long as he could meet up with them, there was a high chance that he could escape. However, as time passed, more and more Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators gathered. The group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators who were charging over was also separated and fought on their own. Lu Yi and the others were suppressed on the spot and couldn't move. There were originally more than a dozen people, but now there were less than 10 left. Raging flames began to burn. It was a spell cast by a few Dharma cultivators standing in midair. Although the Dharma cultivators were dressed differently, they all had a blazing flame on their foreheads. It was obvious that they were from the same faction. As they cast their spells, fire dragons swooped down from the sky, heading straight for the body cultivator in the lead. Although the body cultivator tried his best to resist, he was still burned black and blue all over. Everyone's eyes were filled with despair. If the body cultivator was seriously injured, then they had no hope of breaking out. The fire dragons rose again, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Those spell cultivators obviously wanted to finish off the body cultivator completely. Without the body cultivator in front of them, Lu Yi and the others were fish on the chopping board. "What do you want to do to my junior brother?" At this moment of crisis, a repressed and angry voice suddenly rang out. Even in this noisy battlefield, it was still clearly heard by everyone. When the first 2 words were uttered, the voice was still quite far away. However, when the last word was uttered, the person was already in front of them. A black stream of light rushed forward, wrapped in light purple lightning power, and directly rushed in front of the spell cultivator who cast the fire dragon spell. Its speed was beyond imagination. The spell cultivator's expression changed. He hurriedly changed his direction and shot a fire dragon at the person who came. Chapter 155. With a boom, the newcomer did not dodge, and forcibly smashed the fire dragon into sparks that filled the sky. There was a faint flash of black light, and the body of the spell cultivator standing in midair swayed slightly. Blood spurted out from his neck, and he fell down headfirst. The black streak of light wrapped in lightning charged into the battlefield. Wherever it passed, miserable screams rang out and severed limbs and flesh flew through the air. The chaotic and bloody battlefield instantly turned into a purgatory. In the crowd, Lu Yi stared at the dancing black streak of light. Although he did not know who it was and could not see its movements, the black streak of light gave him a very familiar feeling. It was a kind of familiarity that did not make sense. Lu Yi looked down at his own battlefield imprint and felt a slight warmth coming from it. It seemed to be from the same source as the black streak of light. Was this someone from the Jade Blood sect? The Jade Blood sect still had disciples? He did not know the exact situation of the Jade Blood sect, but from what he knew, he had always thought that the sect had not accepted any disciples for 30 years and was about to be expelled from the sect. But now it seemed that was not the case. The Jade Blood sect still had disciples, at least one. Ignore her, kill Lu Yi. Someone in the crowd shouted. As soon as the voice fell, the black streak of light had already arrived in front of him, and his head flew into the air. A series of techniques fell from the sky, most of them fire-type, especially the ferocious fire dragons. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws, causing the air to distort. The black streak of light wrapped in purple lightning flashed in front of Lu Yi and the others. It raised its hand and grabbed a green leaf. The leaf immediately enlarged and blocked everyone's heads. Asterisk hong hong hong. Asterisk the techniques fell one after another, but they could not break through the leaf's protection. Lu Yi stared blankly at the figure in front of him. This woman was extremely tall, and she wore clothes that didn't fit her well, outlining her graceful figure. The spiritual energy around her surged wildly along with the purple lightning. She resisted the attacks of the spells and smiled at Lu Yi. Little junior brother? I am your eldest senior sister, Wei Yang. In that instant the world lost its color. Lu Yi hurriedly bowed. Greetings, eldest senior sister. His eldest senior sister was so fierce? Furthermore, she was so beautiful and had such a great figure. I'm late, mainly because the old man at home is too stubborn. Old man? Lu Yi froze for a moment before realizing that she was talking about the sect leader. She didn't dare to reply. At the same time, the cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance who were separated outside also charged in. It was Wei Yang who opened a gap for them. Although she had just arrived, she could see the situation clearly at a glance and knew that it was unrealistic to try to save Lu Yi on her own. If she wanted to protect Lu Yi, she would have to borrow the strength of others. This was the reason why she let the cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance in as soon as possible. Only with more people could they protect Lu Yi. In the blink of an eye, the number of cultivators gathered around Lu Yi increased to over 100 people. These people huddled together while resisting the attacks from all directions. Although there was no need to worry for a while, they would eventually run out of energy. Everyone, protect my junior brother. Wei Yang suddenly opened her mouth and said. Immediately, many people responded at once, we'll follow senior's orders. Their attitudes were extremely enthusiastic. Wei Yang charged forward again and her tall figure once again turned into a black streak of light. The cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge who were still casting spells in the air panicked when they saw this. They wanted to scatter as if they were avoiding snakes or scorpions, but anyone who was targeted by her wouldn't last more than 3 breaths of time. A figure screamed as he fell from the sky, followed by a second, a third. The black streak of light only charged back and forth a few times before there was not a single person left in the air. Those who were lucky enough to survive all obediently landed on the ground. There was nothing they could do. Wei Yang's attitude was very clear. She would kill anyone who dared to stand in the air. When Wei Yang returned, the noisy battlefield suddenly quieted down, and all the spiritual energy fluctuations calmed down. It was unknown when Wei Yang had grabbed a huge war scythe, and a pitch-black aura constantly drifted out from the war scythe, giving people an extremely ominous feeling. If you don't want to die, scram? Wei Yang said calmly. Wherever her gaze landed, the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge all retreated. However, one person stood out. This person had a blazing symbol on his forehead that seemed to be burning. He looked at Wei Yang and said, "It is an honor for a fight between us juniors to attract the attention of an expert like Senior. However, Senior has forcefully entered the Spirit Stream battlefield and killed so many people. The taste of the soul-extinguishing divine lightning must not be good, right? Now that the divine lightning is dark purple, how many more people can Senior kill?" Wei Yang turned her head and her figure suddenly turned into an afterimage as she pounced in front of that person. She raised her hand and tapped on that person's chest. It was unknown what technique she used, but that person's body suddenly stiffened. The giant war scythe swung down and that person's head flew high into the air. After killing that person, Wei Yang retreated in front of Lu Yi and coldly snorted, "The Sacred Flame sect wants to be in the limelight? I can't kill that many people. Killing 3 or 5 more should be my limit. Who wants to try?" "Senior, what's the point of bullying the weak?" someone in the crowd angrily shouted. His voice drifted. It was unknown what method he used, but it was obvious that he did not want Wei Yang to determine his location. Wei Yang looked towards the source of the voice and said, "Who is bullying the weak? This is a matter of the Spirit Stream battlefield. Senior, you can't just force your way in. If all the sects were like Senior, then wouldn't the Spirit Stream battlefield be a mess? If they dare, then let them in. Let's see if I can kill them." What an unreasonable pester. The person who spoke was furious and shouted, "Everyone, she is now surrounded by the soul-extinguishing divine lightning. She can't kill many people. Don't be afraid of her. Everyone attack together. If she dares to attack again, she will be destroyed by the divine lightning." "Found you." The corner of Wei Yang's mouth curled up. She extended the war scythe in her hand, and when she pulled it back, there was a thin and small man on the war scythe. The war scythe had pierced through his chest, and he was lifted up high. Blood flowed out from the wound, and the intense pain made him cry out. All the cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge kept quiet out of fear. No one had clearly seen how she had attacked just now. She looked up at the thin man and frowned. "Golden Cloud Tower's people? Several decades have passed, but you still haven't made any progress. You like to hide in the dark and sow discord." "It wasn't me." The thin man struggled. Wei Yang waved the scythe in her hand and a bloody mist exploded. She turned to look at Lu Yi and said, "In the future, if you encounter people from the Sacred Flame sect and Golden Cloud Tower in the Spirit Stream battlefield, don't waste words with them. Kill them first. These 2 sects have a grudge with us." "Yes," Lu Yi respectfully replied. "All right, there is also the 100 Refinements Valley. Since the Sacred Flame sect and Golden Cloud Tower are here, there is no reason for the 100 Refinements Valley not to come. Where are they?" She looked around as if she wanted to find someone from the 100 Refinements Valley to kill. However, with so many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators gathered together, it was impossible to tell. Under that sharp gaze, a myriad Devil Ridge cultivator said weakly, "The 100 Refinements Valley's people are blocked by Feng Yuechan in the encampment." "Yuechan?" Wei Yang's expression softened. The little girl has grown up. She waved the scythe in her hand and said loudly, "I want to take my junior brother away. Does anyone have any objections?" A person from the Sacred Flame sect walked out from the crowd with a pious expression. "As long as the fire in the heart is not extinguished, there is no need to fear death." He stood not far from Wei Yang and looked at her with a calm expression. Wei Yang waved the scythe in her hand and the person from the Sacred Flame sect was immediately cut into 2. Another person walked out and chanted, "As long as the fire in the heart is not extinguished, there is no need to fear death." Wei Yang attacked again without any hesitation. A third person from the Sacred Flame sect walked out and shouted the same words. This time, Wei Yang did not attack again and only smiled. She raised her hand and pointed to the sky. "If I don't kill you, someone will." The clear and melodious sound of a sword suddenly rang out. When everyone looked in the direction she was pointing at, they saw a sword gleam descending from the sky like a waterfall. The man from the Sacred Flame sect did not even have the chance to make a sound before he was split into 2 by the sword gleam. The sword light converged, and a long sword appeared in everyone's eyes. It was inserted diagonally into the ground, and a white-haired man wearing a white robe with red clouds was standing on the hilt of the sword with one hand behind his back. He was like a willow catkin, gently swaying with the movement of the sword hilt. He held a wine gourd in his other hand and drank a mouthful of wine. He burped. "I'm late." "Li Baxian!" Someone cried out in horror. In the myriad Devil Ridge camp, many cultivators were in an uproar. Even if they had not seen Li Baxian before, the cultivators in the Spirit Stream battlefield would have heard of his name. That was because he was a master ranked 10th on the Spirit Stream list. A mere 10th place was not enough to scare people. The main thing was that this guy had reached the 10th place with his 8th order spirit stream realm cultivation. There were only 100 people on the spirit stream list, and all of them were 9th order masters who cultivated heaven grade secret arts. There was only one exception, and that was the 10th ranked Li Baxian. It was difficult to count the number of 9th order masters who cultivated heaven grade secret arts in the spirit stream battlefield because all the sects in the 9 states were gathered here. Almost every day, there would be people breaking through to the 9th order realm. There were also people who broke through their own shackles and reached the Cloud River realm. There were also people who were killed in the struggle. It could be said that the number of 9th order masters was very difficult to count because it was constantly changing. But no matter what, there were always 10,000 people. 1 out of 100 on the spirit stream list, and all those who were on the list were masters among masters. Li Baxian was able to occupy the 10th place with his 8th order cultivation. Part of the reason was that he had fallen from the 9th order realm. Therefore, although he was only an 8th order master, he had the foundation of a 9th order master. It was similar to Dong Shuyi, whom Lu Yi had killed. Before Feng Yuechan occupied the spirit stream list, he was the spirit stream list. But because of an accident, his spirit aperture was broken, causing his cultivation to fall by a minor realm. Another reason, which was also the most important, was that he was a sword cultivator. Chapter 156. Sword cultivators were the most extreme group of weapon cultivators and were given the title of Sword Madman. It could be said that every true sword cultivator could kill enemies above their realm. Take the North Profound Sword sect of the War Province as an example. This sect didn't have many people. Compared to other first-grade sects, the number of cultivators they had was extremely small, only 30% or less. This was because they had strict requirements for accepting disciples. However, everyone in the North Profound Sword sect was a sword cultivator. They only cultivated the sword their whole life, so even though they didn't have many people, they still firmly occupied the top 10 first-grade sects. There were nearly 100 first-grade sects in the 9 states. If there was a first-grade sect that shouldn't be provoked, it would undoubtedly be the North Profound Sword sect. Even other first-grade sects wouldn't dare to provoke them. The 800 sword cultivators coming down the heavenly mountain wasn't a joke. It really happened. Li Baxian's background was very complicated. He was a disciple of the Blue Blood sect when he was young. Later, he joined the Pill Heart sect and had the opportunity to cultivate in the North Profound Sword sect for several years. Therefore, he had a good relationship with the North Profound Sword sect. The sword master of the North Profound Sword sect even personally went to the Pill Heart sect to accept Li Baxian as a disciple. However, he was rejected by the Pill Heart sect. However, it could be seen how much the sword master valued Li Baxian. Although he couldn't accept Li Baxian as a disciple, the sword master taught Li Baxian everything he knew except for some of the sect's secret swords that couldn't be taught to outsiders. Li Baxian didn't disappoint. In the first year after reaching the 9th order, he defeated the Spirit Stream sect's first rank. If his spirit aperture hadn't been broken, he would have already reached the Cloud River realm or even the True Lake realm. After being stuck in the Spirit Stream tier for more than 10 years, although he was unable to raise his cultivation level, his unfathomable swordsmanship had made unimaginable progress. In the Spirit Stream tier, in terms of swordsmanship, if he claimed to be number 2, no one would dare to claim to be number 1. Even the cultivators of the North Profound Sword sect, who were as rigid as dead wood, would have to respectfully address him as Marshal Uncle Li. This was the reason why he had the confidence to occupy the 10th place as an 8th order spirit stream realm. At this moment, this sword cultivator from the battlefield of fame appeared out of nowhere. Just one man and one sword was enough to intimidate the cultivators of the Myriad Demon Ridge into silence. Wei Yang was indeed powerful, but she had forced her way into the spirit stream battlefield as a true lake stage cultivator. The more people she killed, the thicker the soul-extinguishing divine lightning around her body. If she dared to kill another 2 or 3 people, she would definitely be devoured by the divine lightning. When that happened, even if she had the foundation of a true lake stage cultivator, she would not be able to escape death. This was also the reason why the Sacred Flame sect cultivators kept provoking her. In the face of Wei Yang's attack, the Sacred Flame sect cultivators did not even resist. They were clearly waiting for her to kill them because the Sacred Flame sect wanted to get rid of the threat of Wei Yang as soon as possible. But Li Baxian was different. This guy was a genuine 8th Order Spirit Stream Realm cultivator, so he wouldn't be punished for killing someone. Many Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators looked terrified. However, Li Baxian turned around and revealed a bright smile. Which one of you is junior brother? Lu Ye's 5th Order cultivation was too obvious, and he was surrounded by Grand Heaven Alliance's group. Their eyes met and Li Baxian said, "I am your 4th senior brother." "Greetings, 4th senior brother." Lu Yi saluted. It turns out that Wei Yang isn't the only eldest senior sister in the Blue Blood sect. If Li Baxian is 4th senior brother, then there must be 2nd senior brother, 3rd senior brother, and so on above him. Li Baxian nodded with a smile. The old man finally understood and accepted a disciple. Great praise. He then turned to look at Wei Yang and complained, "Senior sister, why didn't you tell me about such a big matter? If it wasn't for you Chan telling me, I wouldn't have known that I had a new junior brother." "The old man didn't allow me to say," Wei Yang explained. "That bad temper of his?" Li Baxian snorted and jumped down from his sword. He raised his hand and pulled out his sword. The corner of his mouth had a smile that mesmerized countless female cultivators. It had to be said that this 4th senior brother really had a good appearance. He was extremely handsome. "I am very happy to see junior brother today. I didn't prepare a greeting gift, so I'll kill a few people to liven things up for junior brother." As he said this, the sword in his hand shook slightly. The sword turned into sword light and flashed through the enemy ranks like a bolt of lightning. "Be careful," someone shouted. "Ah," someone screamed. When the sword light began to wreak havoc, the Myriad Demon Ridge camp was in chaos. Sizzling sounds echoed endlessly. This was the sound of a sharp weapon cutting through flesh. Spirit energy began to become chaotic, and cultivators immediately used their power to block and dodge. However, the sword light was unbelievably fast and sharp. Everyone in its path was torn apart. Their fires of life withered and blood flowed like rivers. In just an instant, more than 20 people died tragically under the sword light. And this was only the beginning. A Myriad Devil Ridge Master rushed in front of Li Baxian. He felt that this was a chance to kill Li Baxian because sword cultivators were most likely to be killed while riding their swords. This person was also a sword cultivator, but he didn't choose to ride his sword. Instead, he directly rushed in front of Li Baxian and waved his sword to create a sword curtain that enveloped Li Baxian. Lu Ye's heart tightened at the sight, but his 4th senior brother just stood there indifferently. He even leisurely grabbed his wine gourd and took a sip. When the sword curtain came down, he opened his mouth and spat out a small sword light. Although the sword light was small, it contained terrifying power. It broke through the sword curtain and pierced through the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivator's chest and came out from his back. That person froze in front of Li Baxian. His eyes were filled with disbelief. "You think you're worthy of using a sword?" Li Baxian's face was cold. The small sword light that killed this person didn't disappear. Instead, it turned into a stream of light just like the first sword that flew out. The two streams of light, one large and one small, crisscrossed back and forth. More Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators died. "Don't kill all of your merit points," Wei Yang suddenly reminded. Although Li Baxian was only an 8th Order, he actually had a 9th Order foundation and cultivated a heaven-grade secret art. According to the rules of the Spirit Stream battlefield, he had to kill at least ordinary 9th Order cultivators who cultivated Earth-grade secret arts to not be penalized. If he killed an 8th Order cultivator who cultivated an Earth-grade secret art, his merit points would be deducted because the difference in cultivation was too great. Cultivators' merit points were hard to come by and were extremely useful, so no one would squander them easily. Li Baxian had killed so many people, so his merit points would definitely be deducted. "I know what I'm doing," Li Baxian responded. He raised his hand and the two streams of light flew back, one flying into his gourd while the other was caught in his hand. The slaughter had come to an end, and the ground was filled with the smell of blood and broken limbs. Lu Yi, who was surrounded by the crowd, felt his heart surge. Not only was his eldest senior sister so ferocious, his fourth senior brother was also so outstanding. The Blue Blood sect, what kind of immortal sect was it? Although he was still in danger, he couldn't help smiling, feeling extremely carefree. The feeling of having someone behind him was really good. He suddenly remembered what Lan Yudi had said to him before. She had said that person had already set off, and as long as he could meet up with that person, it wouldn't be a problem to ensure his survival. Lu Yi didn't know who she was talking about before, but now he knew. The person she was talking about was Li Baxian. Hurry and take junior brother away, Wei Yang urged. Li Baxian shook his head. I can't leave, someone has been waiting for me here. If he could leave, he would have taken Lu Yi away when he first arrived. In the current situation, taking Lu Yi to Blue Rainbow Mountains encampment was the most important thing. Killing people was secondary. If he hadn't sensed the aura of his old rival hiding nearby, why would Li Baxian do something so meaningless? He had killed so many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators, but was it really just to liven things up for Lu Yi? His main goal was to reduce the pressure on his side, even if it meant losing a lot of merit points. That person had arrived earlier than him, but he hadn't shown himself because Wei Yang was here. If he dared to show himself, Wei Yang would immediately cut him down. I can smell the stench on your body from afar, hurry up and come out. Li Baxian suddenly turned his head and looked in a certain direction. He slashed down with the sword in his hand, sending a sword ray towards that direction. The myriad Devil Ridge cultivators hurriedly dodged, but a few of them still died. However, the sharp sword ray was shattered by a long saber. Behind the long saber, a young man with disheveled hair and a tight band on his head stared coldly at Li Baxian. His eyes were like that of a hungry wolf, suffused with a fierce luster. Yan Xing, a Grand Heaven Alliance cultivator, recognized the newcomer's identity and exclaimed. In the 9 provinces, there was a saying of South Saber and North Sword. North Sword referred to the North Profound Sword sect of the War province, while South Saber referred to the Wild Saber sect of the Ding province. Both of these sects were first-grade sects, and there were many talents in their sections. Since ancient times, those who practiced the saber looked down on those who practiced the sword, and those who practiced the sword looked down on those who practiced the saber. In any case, both sides hated each other and disliked each other. Although these two sects weren't in the same province, their encampments in the Spirit Stream battlefield were next to each other, so there would often be friction between them. After many years of grudges and grievances, and the deaths of countless disciples, the two sects had become mortal enemies, and both wanted to completely eradicate the other. Yan Xing was from the Wild Saber sect, and his ranking on the Spirit Stream list was much higher than Li Baxian's. He was ranked second. Not to mention the Spirit Stream list, Yan Xing and Li Baxian had a personal grudge. When Li Baxian was cultivating in the North Profound Sword sect, he participated in an operation against the Wild Saber sect. In the end, Li Baxian killed a woman in that battle. That woman was Yan Xing's childhood sweetheart. Ever since then, Yan Xing swore to kill Li Baxian to avenge his woman. He was involved in the battle where Li Baxian's spiritual cavities were broken. Unfortunately, he didn't do his best in that battle, and Li Baxian escaped. With his spiritual cavities broken, Li Baxian couldn't break through to the Cloud River Tier, and he wasted more than 10 years. Like Feng Yuechan, Yan Xing's cultivation was stuck, and he stayed in the Spirit Stream battlefield to kill Li Baxian with his own hands. The experts of the various sects on the Spirit Stream list felt sad when they talked about this. The first and second place on the list were stuck because of Li Baxian, and they could only occupy the third place at most. After a long time, these experts stopped thinking about this matter. Those who could break through to the Cloud River Tier quickly did so, and left this place as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Li Baxian didn't give Yan Xing a chance at all, because he always stayed in the Soaring Eagle Stone of the Pill Heart sect, and rarely went out. Chapter 157. When he heard that Li Baxian had left the Pill Heart sect, Yan Xing knew that his chance had come. He came here early and hid himself. As expected, Li Baxin came. He didn't care about the game between the Myriad Devil Ridge and the Grand Heaven Alliance. What he wanted to do was very simple. Kill Li Baxin and end the grudge of the past few decades. I'll deal with him. You protect junior brother. Wei Yang said. Li Baxin shook his head. Senior sister, you know that I'm good at killing people, but I'm not good at protecting people. Also, Yan Xing isn't the only one on the spirit stream list. You mean? Wei Yang's expression changed slightly. She was affected by the soul-extinguishing divine lightning and her perception was greatly reduced. Li Baxin snorted. They're all hiding in the crowd to observe the situation. They're all waiting to reap the benefits. His eyes flashed. I'll create an opportunity. You take junior brother away. Although the chances aren't high, we still have to try. Be careful. Wei Yang warned. Li Baxin picked up the wine gourd and poured a mouthful of wine into his mouth. He didn't swallow it but spat it out. In an instant, more than 10 sword lights rushed forward. He was wrapped in a sword light as he charged at Yan Xing. Just as he made his move, Wei Yang also made her move. A dark green leaf wrapped around Lu Yi. She grabbed Lu Ye's collar and soared into the sky. Clearly, she wanted to use the disturbance caused by Li Baxin to bring Lu Yi away. Lu Yi was wrapped in the leaves and couldn't see what was going on outside. He could only feel waves of spiritual energy surging around him, and from time to time, there would be strong impacts. Following Wei Yang's groan, Lu Yi regained control of his body. He looked around and saw that he was back at his original spot. Obviously, Wei Yang couldn't take him away successfully. Even though Wei Yang had been killing in all directions, and those Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were unable to fight back, the truth was that the true experts hadn't even made a move yet. They all felt that Wei Yang wasn't someone to be trifled with and were all waiting for an opportunity. In any case, Wei Yang had forced her way into the spirit stream battlefield. The more people she killed, the worse her situation would be. As long as Wei Yang dared to kill 2 more people, they wouldn't need to do anything. Heaven's punishment would destroy Wei Yang's soul. At this moment, Wei Yang wanted to forcefully take Lu Yi away. Those people naturally could not sit by and do nothing. They attacked together and Wei Yang had no choice but to retreat. If she did not retreat, Lu Yi would probably die. Due to Li Baxin and Wei Yang's actions, the originally calm Golden Light Summit was once again in a chaotic battle. Many Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators were surrounded in the middle, trying their best to resist the attacks from all directions. Fortunately, Wei Yang and Li Baxin had killed a lot of Myriad Devil Ridge's people, greatly reducing the pressure on Grand Heaven Alliance's side. Otherwise, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to hold on. Wei Yang did not attack again. Instead, she stood guard beside Lu Yi, swinging the scythe in her hand to block the incoming spells and talismans. With her around, Lu Yi would not be in any danger. She had tried many times to bring Lu Yi away, but every time she flew up, she would be forced to fall back down. She might have been able to survive, but there was no way Lu Yi would be able to survive. Even more cultivators from Grand Heaven Alliance and Myriad Demon Ridge rushed over. News of Lu Ye's situation had long since spread out. Due to that, the cultivators from the 2 great factions were rushing over as well. As time went by, the number of cultivators gathered there gradually exceeded 1,000. Additionally, that number was still increasing. With Golden Light Summit as the core, large and small battles broke out in all directions. Cultivators from both sides fought each other, turning the entire Golden Light Summit into a minced meat pool. This kind of battle lasted from day to night, and from night to day. Cultivators from both sides fell one after another, but new blood came in from outside to replenish their numbers. More than a dozen masters from the Spirit Stream list had arrived. They were fighting in pairs, and the scene was very tense. No one had expected that this siege against the Jade Blood Sect's disciple would develop like this. Originally, in Myriad Devil Ridge's plan, Jade Blood Sect's Lu Yi was just a 5th-order cultivator. As long as they found an opportunity, anyone with a bit of strength could kill him. Once they killed him, Myriad Devil Ridge would win. However, Grand Heaven Alliance's response was unexpectedly tough. Under the protection of Grand Heaven Alliance's masters, Lu Yi had made it all the way here. Although he was trapped now, As long as Grand Heaven Alliance's people didn't die, it would be very difficult for them to kill Lu Yi. It was hard to stop halfway. Since the Spirit Stream battlefield's existence, there had never been such a fierce battle in the Outer Ring. At this point, whether it was Myriad Devil Ridge or Grand Heaven Alliance, it was impossible for them to stop easily. Both sides had lost too many people. At the center of the battle, Lu Yi, who was protected by the crowd, lowered his eyes and looked at his long saber. The helplessness and anger in his heart grew stronger and stronger. This feeling of not being in control of one's own life was really terrible. Being weak was indeed the biggest sin. No one cared if the weak shouted themselves hoarse, but the strong spoke softly and softly, but the words of the strong were deeply ingrained in people's hearts. Therefore, regardless of the game between the two camps, even if they were to die, they would choose a way to die, and not stand here foolishly waiting for the outcome of this battle to be decided. With a bang, a figure fell in front of Lu Yi. Li Baxian was beaten back, and his body was covered in wounds. There was a gap between the 10th place and the 2nd place. That bastard isn't any better. Although Li Baxian was in a difficult situation, he didn't want to lose face. He grinned at Lu Yi. Little junior brother can rest assured, this elder brother will go and cut off his dog head. Saying so, he got up and prepared to fight again. As a sword cultivator, he was never afraid to fight against those stronger than him. Although he wasn't Yenxing's opponent now, if it really came down to a life or death battle, he was confident he could take Yenxing down with him. Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed down on his shoulder. Li Baxian looked at Lu Yi in surprise. Enough. Lu Yi said softly, it's enough, senior brother. HM? Stop. Lu Yi smiled at him, then raised his head and looked at the chaotic battlefield. He took a deep breath, and as his spiritual energy surged, he roared, everyone, stop. Although he was only a 5th-order cultivator, this shout, which was enhanced by spirit chi, was like a thunderclap that spread out in all directions. Both sides of the fierce battle suddenly heard this shout. Many of the cultivators who were already finding it difficult to continue immediately stopped and retreated. The first to stop were the cultivators near Lu Yi. This situation spread out like a ripple, and the battle on the periphery slowly subsided. After 30 breaths of time, all the fighting stopped. The chaotic battlefield became calm, and the chaotic fluctuations of spiritual force gradually disappeared. Pairs of eyes stared at Lu Yi from all directions. Only now did everyone realize that it was this guy who had shouted for everyone to stop. Little junior brother? Wei Yang, who had been standing in front of Lu Yi, looked at him in confusion before turning to Li Baxian. The latter shook his head, indicating that he didn't know what his little junior brother was going to do. I have something to say. Lu Yi opened his mouth and said to Wei Yang. Then he looked around and said loudly, I have something to say. This sentence was directed to the many cultivators around him. Although I, Lu Yi, don't have a high cultivation, since everyone came for me, I think I am qualified to say a few words. Does anyone have any objections? Fellow Taoist, please speak your mind. Yes, we have no objections. A group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators echoed. Lu Ye's sudden interruption of the battle between the two sides allowed both sides to breathe a sigh of relief. Everyone could take advantage of this rare opportunity to rest and recuperate. After a long battle of this scale, most people couldn't bear it anymore. Speak. A Myriad Demon Ridge cultivator spoke. This person was a master ranked in the top 20 of the Spirit Stream list and came from a 1st-grade sect. Yenxing didn't speak, but his attitude represented the entire Myriad Demon Ridge. As for Yenxing, he only had Li Baxian in his eyes and didn't care about anyone else. Lu Yi nodded and said, half a year ago, I joined the Blue Blood sect and was attacked on the way back. The sect master sent me to the Spirit Stream battlefield. To be honest, I don't even know what the Blue Blood sect looks like, who is in it, or the grievances of the previous generation. It wasn't until someone came to find me that I knew that I had become the center of the battle between the two camps. I, Lu Yi, am just a 5th-order cultivator. How could I have the power to do so? But since things have reached this point, I can't resist and can only accept it. You people from the Myriad Devil Ridge wanted to kill me. Along the way, I faced dangers everywhere. Luckily, I had many senior brothers and sisters from the Grand Heaven Alliance to protect me. That was why I, Lu Yi, was able to survive until now. Many people died. Some died in front of me, some died in places I couldn't see. I don't even know their names. Today, many people have died here. If we continue fighting, more will die. Do you still want to continue? No one answered. If we continue fighting like this, the casualties will only increase. Is this what you want to see? Lu Yi asked again. The Spirit Stream List Master who spoke earlier coldly snorted, then, in your opinion, shouldn't we just let it go? Of course not. Lu Yi shook his head. So many people have died. I don't think that either Myriad Demon Ridge or Grand Heaven Alliance will let this matter go. If we really let it go, your Myriad Demon Ridge won't be able to explain it to your respective sects. You're a smart man. The man sneered. If you don't want to see so many people from Grand Heaven Alliance die for you, then kill yourself. As long as you die, this battle will naturally end. That's right. Just die, boy. You can't escape. If you kill yourself, you can at least leave a complete corpse. If you are hacked to death, you will be unrecognizable. Many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators shouted. Wei Yang, who was standing beside Lu Yi, had a gloomy expression. She almost couldn't help but want to kill all those who were shouting. Lu Yi slowly shook his head. So many senior brothers and senior sisters from Grand Heaven Alliance have died because of me. If I die, how can they rest in peace? Moreover, I'm still so young. I don't want to die. If you don't want to die, then why are you talking so much nonsense? The man's face turned angry. Lu Ye's eyelids drooped as she spoke slowly. Although the feeling of being protected is not bad, as a cultivator, there are some things that concern us. We should always bear some responsibilities. Unfortunately, my cultivation base is not high enough to bear too much. He slowly pulled out the long saber at his waist and pointed it at Myriad Demon Ridge's camp. Jade Blood Sect's disciple, Lu Yi, hereby challenges all the major sects of Myriad Demon Ridge. If you have the same cultivation base and want to kill me, then come and fight. Chapter 158. Blue Blood Sect's disciple, Lu Yi, hereby challenges all the great sects of Myriad Demon Ridge. Anyone with the same cultivation as me who wants to kill me, feel free to fight. A deep and sonorous voice spread out under the influence of spirit chi as pairs of eyes focused on Lu Yi, some filled with surprise, some puzzlement, and most of all shock. Challenging so many sects from Myriad Demon Ridge by himself sounded awe-inspiring and domineering, but in fact, it was foolish. There were nearly 1,000 Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators here, and even if the number of fifth-order cultivators with the same cultivation as Lu Yi was not high, there were at least 100 of them. To put it bluntly, a single spit from each of them could drown Lu Yi. However, it was undeniable that his courage was truly impressive. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master raised his brow. Can you represent Blue Blood Sect and Grand Heaven Union? Li Baxian's face turned cold. Children speak nonsense. There's no need to take it seriously. Lu Yi turned his head and smiled at him before turning to the Myriad Demon Ridge Master who spoke. I can't represent anyone. I only represent myself. But didn't you all come here for me? At this point, this dispute can no longer be resolved in a normal way, unless you want more people to die. I'm just offering you a way to solve this problem. In addition, I have some requests. If Myriad Demon Ridge can't agree to these requests, just pretend I didn't say anything. You can continue fighting, I'll just quietly watch the show. Speak. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master quickly said, I will only accept one challenge from each sect, and only one person at a time. If I lose, I have nothing to say, but if I win by a fluke, that sect must withdraw from this dispute. I ask the heavens to bear witness. When these words fell, Li Baxian raised his brow. He had thought that his little junior brother's actions were unwise due to his anger, but now it seemed that he still had some ideas. However, the only question now was how strong his little junior brother was and whether he could take on so many challenges. If little junior brother was really strong enough, then this method could indeed resolve this dispute, But if he was not strong enough, he would inevitably become a stepping stone for someone else to rise up. The bounty for killing blue blood sects Lu Yi was quite high. He turned his head and glanced at Wei Yang, asking for her opinion. Wei Yang slowly shook her head, indicating that she did not know how strong her junior brother was. The two of them had never interacted with Lu Yi before. Although Wei Yang had long known that the headmaster had taken in a junior brother, she had only seen him in person yesterday. How could she know how strong Lu Yi was? Well, the Myriad Demon Ridge is so big, and there are so many talents. Is there no one who dares to accept the challenge? Above the golden light that was as smooth as a mirror, the cultivators on both sides were completely silent. Only Lu Ye's voice echoed. Suddenly, a woman said, "You, Lu Yi, can kill people above your level. How many people of the same cultivation level can be your match? You've really calculated everything." As the voice rang out, a woman leisurely walked out of the crowd. She looked at Lu Yi with a cold expression. It was Han Jiyu of the Tai Luo sect. Lu Yi had been chased by her before, but fortunately, Tang Wu was hiding nearby and stopped her. Now that Tang Wu was nowhere to be seen, this Han Jiyu had actually come out. This little brat can kill people above his level? The master in the top 20 of the spirit stream list frowned. He was wondering why this Lu Yi of the Jade Blood sect was so arrogant. It turned out that he had such confidence. Han Jiyu bowed to this person gracefully, then stared at Lu Yi and said, "That's right. When this person was in the 4th Order Spirit Stream realm, he killed several 5th Order cultivators of my Tai Luo sect. Now that he is a 5th Order cultivator, if you want to kill him, you will need at least a 6th Order cultivator. He is indeed a talent. No wonder he was accepted by the Jade Blood sect. And you may not know this, but this little brat is also good at using a defensive spirit inscription to fight, so it will be very difficult to break through his defense." Han Jiyu continued to expose Lu Ye's background. When she said this, her face was full of pride, as if she wanted to see if Lu Yi would die or not. As soon as these words came out, the crowd went into an uproar. Spirit inscriptions were something that every cultivator was familiar with. In every cultivator's life and cultivation, spirit inscriptions were indispensable. In the 9 continents, there was a special group of people called spirit inscriptionists. Most of these people didn't have much fighting power, because they put too much energy into studying spirit inscriptions and rarely fought with others. However, there was a very small group of spirit inscriptionists who couldn't be provoked. They were called battle spirit inscriptionists, or battle spirit inscriptionists for short. Compared to the terrifying killing power of sword cultivators, battle spirit inscriptionists could be said to be treacherous and changeable. Their enemies often died without even knowing how they died. Spiritual inscriptions were complicated and profound. Under normal circumstances, cultivators would only start to study spiritual inscriptions after they had a certain cultivation base. However, they would only start to study spiritual inscriptions. If they wanted to use spiritual inscriptions in battle, they would need many years of accumulation. The 9 continents was vast and there were tens of thousands of cultivators, but there were less than 100 famous battle spirit inscriptionists. These people were all distinguished guests of the top sects, a 5th Order cultivator who could use spirit inscriptions in battle, not to mention seeing it, had never even heard of it. This was a good seedling for battle spirit inscriptionists. If those famous battle spirit inscriptionists knew about this, they would probably rush to recruit him as their disciple. So, don't be fooled by him. If you really let people of the same cultivation level fight him, they will all die. Han Jiyu looked at Lu Yi with a sneer. When Lu Yi jumped out to talk nonsense, she had already seen through his plan. "Is Sang he your senior brother?" A faint voice suddenly sounded in Han Jiyu's ears. The smile on Han Jiyu's face immediately stiffened. She looked at Li Baxin timidly and denied flatly, "No, no." Li Baxin said indifferently, "Very good, get ready to collect his corpse." Han Jiyu cursed in her heart. These people from the Blue Blood sect were too unreasonable. She had only stood out to speak the truth, but she was threatened like this. "Senior brother Sang he, if you see Li Baxin in the future, you must run away quickly, or you will die. Also, I didn't do it on purpose. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master suddenly smiled and looked at Lu Yi. Your proposal just now was good, but in terms of cultivation, I think it should be limited to no higher than the 6th order. What do you think? Lu Ye's face turned ashen and he remained silent. He looked like he had been exposed but couldn't do anything about it. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master said indifferently, just now, you said that this matter was related to you and you had to take responsibility. What, is this all you can take responsibility for? The people of the Blue Blood sect are nothing more than this. Good. The veins on Lu Ye's forehead bulged, as if he had been provoked. Li Baxian and Wei Yang shouted in unison, little junior brother, you can't. The Myriad Demon Ridge Master took advantage of the situation and said, the person involved has already agreed, but you two still want to stop him. What? Do you really want the people of Grand Heaven Union to continue fighting for your Blue Blood sect? A sect that is about to be wiped out is still struggling. This sentence really made Li Baxian speechless. He glared at the man before turning to Lu Yi. Little junior brother is confused. He is obviously trying to provoke you. How can you agree to this so easily? Even if Lu Yi could really kill people above his realm, challenging people of the same cultivation was already risky enough. He wasn't going to fight one person, but a group of people. If it was the 6th order, there would be no hope. Lu Yi turned to look at him. Senior brother, I can do it. Li Baxian wanted to say, you can do it my ass. Everyone had been young and frivolous before, but they often had to pay a heavy price. Even when he was in the 5th order, he didn't dare to accept such a challenge as it could really kill him. However, when he met Lu Ye's eyes, he found that there was no anger or struggle in them, only eagerness. Lu Yi lowered his eyes and looked towards the back of Li Baxian's hand. The latter immediately understood and flicked his finger towards the back of his hand, sending a blue light towards Lu Yi. Immediately after, he sent a message, little junior brother, how strong are you? Tell your senior brother. I've killed a few 6th order, but not a 7th order, but if I go all out, I may have a chance. Exclamation point. Li Baxian was shocked. This wasn't just killing an enemy above his realm, this was killing an enemy 2 realms above his own. How could his little junior brother be so fierce? Although this old man had a stubborn temper, his vision was still as sharp as a torch. However, Li Baxian didn't show the slightest expression on his face and instead wore a worried look as he continued to send a message. Did you do that on purpose? Lu Ye's attitude of immediately agreeing after being provoked was so realistic that Li Baxian didn't see any flaws. Let's go with the flow, Lu Yi replied. He didn't expect Han Jiyu to be here. He hadn't noticed her before, and now that Han Jiyu had exposed him, it was no longer possible for him to challenge someone of the same cultivation level. If we really do that, it'll be a war of attrition. This time, there are at least 30 sects from Myriad Demon Ridge, if not 50, can you handle it? I'll do my best. Senior brother, if we continue to fight, no one will gain anything. If we can succeed, it'll be the best way to solve the problem. Li Baxian was silent. How could he not know this? The Myriad Demon Ridge side had also seen this point. The current situation was no longer under anyone's control because more and more cultivators from the 2 camps were involved in the battle with Lu Yi. The battle would become more and more chaotic. Yesterday, there were only 1,000 people on Golden Light Peak, but today, there were almost 2,000, and there would only be more and more in the future. Was Myriad Demon Ridge really willing to listen to the advice of a 5th order cultivator? If it weren't for the fact that they were riding a tiger and couldn't get off, they would have treated Lu Ye's words as nonsense. It could be said that Lu Yi made a proposal that was beneficial to both sides when both sides needed it. This was the biggest reason why the Myriad Demon Ridge side was willing to agree to this proposal. Moreover, at this point, many people from Grand Heaven Alliance hoped that things would develop in this direction. If he refused, it would only cause the Jade Blood sect to lose people's support, especially after the Myriad Demon Ridge side said, do you really want the people of Grand Heaven Alliance to fight to the death for your Jade Blood sect? The people of Grand Heaven Alliance came here on the orders of their master, but the people of Myriad Demon Ridge were different. They would gain great benefits from killing Lu Yi. Therefore, whether he was willing or not, when Lu Yi made this proposal, it was necessary to implement it, You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.